As the leader of the Booner pack, I lead from the front.
All right, boys. Lock in.
It's our core foundation, man. Grit.
I'm fired up. I'm fired the fuck up, boys.
It's pumping right now. It's got my juices pumping, boys.
Welcome, everybody, to Crunch Time with Jeff, Booner, Lukas, and Gentry. It is Monday, August 26th. And cuts are already starting. All right, guys are already getting cut. Lions roster's kind of shaping up as we speak. There could be more on the show live. So we'll break all that down. Lots to get into. Maybe some possible additions we'll speak about. Maybe at wide receiver, because there are some guys that departed today at wide receiver. But we got a lot to speak about. Fellas, we're back. It's Monday. I'm feeling good. Ready to talk Lions football. We got, less than 2 weeks now at this point until the Lions return. So I'm fired up. I'm fired up,
baby. Let's go. No, I'm pumped up. Cannot wait. A lot of things happened today too. It was a busy day. Just out of nowhere too. I was on my phone, and you guys know I've been trying to tweet. I'll be a little insider for Crunch Time here, and nothing happened all day, and then just out of nowhere, just boom, 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 things started getting released for the Lions. I did it real quick too. I just want people to know this. I didn't realize this. I saw someone tweet it out. I think it was Justin Rogers. All of this stuff doesn't become official until the Lions have not made any of this stuff official. It's really just more so agents putting it out and players probably having meetings today and meeting with Brad and Dan, and then their agents telling people so they know, hey, we can go different places. But nothing becomes official until tomorrow. That's why we haven't seen the full cut down list yet. It's just been a gradual thing. But it's ready. Good Monday.
Good Monday. Yep. Next, between now and 4 p.m. tomorrow, is definitely going to be a lot of news, Detroit Lions wide, and then obviously NFL wide, because the Lions are going to have to bring in some people at certain positions, so it's going to be exciting to watch. We get to bring it to you 8 to 10 all week, baby. So shout out to the chat for being here. It's going to be a good week, fellas.
You're seeing all those rumored, you start seeing the cryptic tweets like Daurice Fountain.
Oh my gosh. Did you guys see that?
Yeah, what did he tweet, Boone? He tweeted something. People were freaking.
He just tweeted out, wow. You can pull it up. I mean, I don't know. I don't even know what that means. I'm guessing he had a meeting and got cut, but if I don't know, maybe it could be maybe that DPJ is gone and he's shocked that some other guys that he likes is gone. I honestly don't know. I'm guessing it means that he's gone as well, and they didn't go with him or DPJ, which is not shocking, but both of the big wide receivers that you're hoping to have potentially off the team. But yeah, he tweets just wow. And you would think maybe his agent would tell the people hey, he got cut, but you haven't heard anything about Daurice Fountain. I don't like cryptic tweets personally, not gonna lie.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't, especially with athletes, it can mean so many things. To your point, Booner, it could be about DPJ, it could be he made the team and he's kind of surprised that he made the team. When you're out there with Nate Sudfeld and you're not getting good looks, you probably don't have that high of expectations of making a team. So it could be the complete opposite. You never know, but you can make judgments from him, but we won't know until tomorrow.
I mean, yeah. Venom says in the chat here, shout out to him. He says, yeah, he's gone. He scrubbed his account, all of Lions stuff.
That's you know what? That's the tough thing, guys, though, of cut is, and I think especially covering the team and all the shout out to the chat. It's been here all off season, and we're finally into the season. So they've been here with us to all off season. But the tough part about it, you have 90 players or 90 something players that are at training camp with you. That's a lot of players. You have to get all the way down to 53. And then you have to hope that some guys can make it back. And then you can get up to with the practice squad, 69 guys. Even if it's just 69 guys, you're cutting 20 something guys. I saw a stat that it was over 1,300 players are going to get cut this week in the next 48 hours. And over 800 of them probably won't be able to return on a practice squad or something like that. That's 800 guys or 600 guys or whatever it was, without a job. So that's the business, man. That's the tough part about all of this, especially when we're covering it. And I was, hey, you guys know me. I was a Daurice Fountain fan.
Now we know
his agent was retweeting our stuff, was liking our. Tough, man. I like Daurice Fountain, man. I was all over it.
He's going to get another shot somewhere. I mean,
Sure.
I mean, that's the hardest part. You kind of nailed it. I mean, we could start with the returning guys too, and we put this out on our social medias. breaking news, Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta, Taron Arnold, DJ Reader, Kevin Zeitler, and Rodrigo all returned to practice yesterday. So they are back, which is great. So we got core players are back from injury, although you kind of mentioned the unfortunate part of seeing guys go. That's what happens, number one, at this time of the year. It's the toughest part. I know Dan probably just absolutely hates it. And number two, it's because you have a good roster. So it makes these decisions even harder when you do something. Hey, you know what? Real quick, look at you see the shout out Ryan Lentz peeking.
Is that Lentz?
Yeah, that's Lentz.
We're at Lentz up there.
No way! What a legend! Oh my gosh! Tell him to go down and come on the show.
Hey, shout out Ryan Lentz. Yeah, okay. Anyway, sorry to distract that, but yeah, it's the toughest part. But this is the good thing about having a good roster. All right, it's the unfortunate part. Like Daurice Fountain won't make this roster, but there's probably a roster in the league where he might make it. You know, so that's just the reality.
Yeah, teams like Pittsburgh, teams like New England, they're going to take a waiver on a guy like Daurice Fountain all the time because, I mean, what do they have to lose by doing it? If you're making a little bit of noise in a team like the Detroit Lions training camp, then if you're a team that's just looking for anything, even the Carolina Panthers, who just went and got 2 or 3 receivers over the last offseason or two, they will take a waiver on him. That doesn't mean he's going to make the team, but I think he's shown enough. I mean, I think when you look at just training camp and preseason as a whole, him and DPJ were pretty much stagnant. I bet DPJ is definitely going to be a guy that at least gets picked up and get looked at. If guys like Denzel Mims are getting picked up, I bet you Daurice Fountain's going to be getting picked up too.
Yeah, I mean, we can start too. I mean, we could just get right into it, at least with some. No, go on, Booner.
I would just say with the injury stuff, I'll just stay on that real quick. Like the injury stuff, like I don't think people are real. Like this morning, that news comes out. Think about how like we had so many guys, starters, go down with injuries in training camp. Like whether it was big or small or big, we might end up having every single person back for week 1. Like DJ Reader's the only one that's like up in question to where it's like maybe week 2. I just you put that up there on the screen. I just like that is like every single person. They said Carlton Davis was back today and his Rakestraw. I didn't even put that in the graphic, but like everyone is back here essentially, and it's going to be ready for week 1. I don't think that's like realized to be how big that is. Like that's massive. Like there was 8 guys essentially that are big time pieces to this offense and defense and this whole team, and they're all going to be ready for week 1, thankfully.
Hey, it's the first time we've gotten at least an idea from Dan directly of when they thought DJ would return. I think he said Tampa was when they were targeting his return.
Yeah,
and he's already off the PUP list, and that's great news. So at least he's being worked back. Doesn't mean he'll play week 1, but I am shocked that even the torn quad that he's getting closer and closer with 2 weeks. I mean, about a little under 2 weeks left. So that's great news. And usually the Lions last year got really lucky with injuries. And right now you got your core guys all healthy. I mean, they dodged a bullet last week with Penei Sewell, which was huge because that worried me. But they're good. I mean, it's huge. DJ Raiders getting back. All these guys getting back. Sam Laporta. Especially for the fantasy guys, now that we're getting into that season, Sam Laporta.
Yeah, those are big ones, especially Gibbs.
Oh, and Gibbs, yeah, another one. So
I was shocked. I was one of the ones a couple of weeks ago that was a little like questionable with DJ Reader. Like we just never heard anything about him for the longest. Like no one mentioned DJ Reader's injury and like when he's going to be back. And then like you said, thankfully, like today you get like just an idea. Like all right, if it's week 2, if long, like what is it? Not what was like the long sight, like long down the line, you're looking down. All right, week 2 is the farthest down that we could go. I don't know the term for that. Not that smart, but like short term, it's like all right, week 1 or week 2. But like if you have him back by week 2, I'm happy with that. Like we were all already planning week 1, maybe going out with DJ Reader, and you have Broderick Martin, and you have other guys to take, but like to fill in. So to hear that was like really good news today. I like that.
I feel like not hearing about DJ Reader was probably a good thing. I think if there had been setbacks and his injuries kind of prolonging him, I definitely think you would have heard about it. But DJ Reader at camp, when we went, I mean, he was just warming up. He was doing his own thing. I think they were playing it very safe because we've even talked about it before. If DJ Reader was healthy, he wasn't going to be a guy that's repping a ton in training camp regardless just because he is a vet. If you want to take an off day, DJ Reader, go take a blow, go take an off day type of thing. So DJ Reader, I think by latest, he'll be back week 3. I really wouldn't even be surprised to see at least him getting a rotation week 1.
Hey, quietly, Broderick Martin on Saturday got hurt. Like he had a hyperextension on his knee, and they said they don't. It's not long term, but it like could be a couple weeks. So I don't know if that's something. Actually, no one asked that today. I think everyone going in today with Dan Campbell was kind of focused on those guys, and as well as the cut day. Obviously, today and tomorrow is a big day, so no one really talked about unless I missed it. I don't know if you guys heard anything about Broderick, but I zero clue with Broderick.
I remember seeing it wasn't anything major. I didn't see the specific injury though. He was able to walk off by himself, and for a guy that size, that's a good sign.
Yeah, it's a big man. A big man. Let's get into it because a lot of guys got released today. And we'll start. We won't start with DPJ. We'll save that. So stick around. We'll get into that in a little bit. We'll get to the other ones. We'll get the little icebreaker here. Caden Davis. He is no longer a part of the Detroit Lions. He was actually like the first one to go. I think that was the first report I saw was Caden Davis. He is no longer a part of the Lions. They released Mitchell Agude, who, we talked about it last week, was kind of competing with not competing necessarily, but kind of playing that Sam role to go ahead and try and be a Sam linebacker. And he got released today as well. Another player, Shane Zylstra, got released.
That one was
surprising. So just start with those three before we get to DPJ. But I would say, and I would agree with that, the most surprising one, Shane Zylstra. I don't know what the plan is there or what happened, but it seemed like he was making plays in camp. He was steady all camp. Obviously we don't know everything behind the scenes, but it felt like with Shane Zylstra, he got injured last season. They like him a lot, and he's gone. And there's got to be more to the story. I'm missing here. It just doesn't make sense. I mean, James Mitchell's here and he's not. I don't get it.
I think the only factor in it is maybe that the Lions, when you look at Sam Laporta, when you look at Brock Wright, very good blockers, and they want a receiving factor there. Maybe they might move off of James Mitchell as well, and they want to bring in another body. But Shane Zylstra dealt with injuries in the past, and you kind of already have a guy that has that similar skill set in Brock Wright. That's the only thing I could be thinking of, because James Mitchell, even on Saturday, dropped a wide open pass, was looking upfield way too early, and it just hit the ground. So when you look at that, James Mitchell, I don't think he's a lock by any means. Maybe Parker Hesse. Like, as funny as that sounds, like the Lions really like what he's been doing in training camp at your third string tight end. You really just want to make sure he's a consistent blocker. So maybe Parker Hesse's making this team as a surprise, not a surprise cut. And I think he's going to make it. I don't know. It's hard to tell, but there's a lot of question marks around it. It'd probably be, you'll get the answer to it in the next 24 hours.
Yeah, that was one of the shocking, like, honestly, we talked about like last week and the week leading up. What would be a shocking cut for you? It never even went through my mind, Shane Zylstra, like not once, because every time he was out there, he made plays, and he, like, obviously he had a long-term injury last year, so he was out all of 2023. But in 2022, he had the 3-touchdown game. Like, he was producing when his name was called and his number was called. And then all of a sudden, this year you're like, all right, Shane Zylstra's back. You have Sam Laporta, Brock Wright, and Shane Zylstra. So I thought that was your three. Like, I thought it was, honestly, if you guys were like Booner, put a lock, like put a house on the line or something on the line for what position group's going to be a lock, I probably would have done that. Like those three, I thought Shane Zylstra was a lock. And then all of a sudden that comes out today. Klotz, I'm a little with you on one of those parts. Like, there's a couple things that went through my mind. The first thing was there's maybe a tight end out there that they like a little more and feel like they can go out and snag, and they're going to target someone else. Two, Parker Hesse. The thing with Parker Hesse is one thing you have to remember is Jason Cabinda is no longer on this team. Parker Hesse is a guy that can step in at fullback too. Like, you guys remember seeing him at camp, like how short and built he is, and I think they played him at fullback a little bit as well. He's probably like their ideal like guy. Him or Rodrigo. Rodrigo's been hurt, so they probably been doing Parker Hesse, and that probably has like separated him a little bit. And I think when you look at it, like, I wouldn't be shocked if you see Parker Hesse make the team and James Mitchell get cut within the next 24 hours. Like, I wouldn't be shocked as much as Shane's, because, like, are they looking for guys who can catch passes and really play make? No, because you have Brock Wright and Sam Laporta. So, like, you really don't need that. Like, if you're being honest, unless someone goes down, knock on wood. The only other thing I thought of, guys, was they roll with two tight ends and they're trying to figure out a way. Like, they're looking at the depth of other positions. Prime example, defensive end, and they're like, we don't want to get rid of, we think Matthew Betts, or we think Ukwu, or we think James Houston will get picked up out in the waiver wire, and we want to make sure we keep all those guys because we know how important defensive edge depth is. So we're going to have to go with two tight ends, and we'll figure that out as we go. Like, that's the Parker Hesse thing, and in a different position group thing is the only thing in my mind that makes sense. As much as like people don't want to hear that, Like, all right, would you rather keep some depth at an edge when like you really don't have that much and that don't have like a high ceiling there in that room? Or would you rather stick there with the tight ends and be like, oh, we already know we have Brock Wright and Sam Laporta. Like, you don't know what you have in the edge room fully, and you don't want to lose any guys. That's where my mind goes with it. That's kind of the first thing that I went to. It was the Hesse and then the edge group.
I don't know what the heck. I mean, we went to training camp. I don't know. I'm going to be honest. My mind goes to they'll outsource for that tight end position. I don't know unless they like Parker. I mean, I don't know.
Dan talks about him all the time during press conferences. He'll bring him up slightly. If he's a good blocker too, and the only reason I push back on the 2 tight end thing, Boone, especially with Dan Campbell being a former tight end, like we saw the depth of this offensive line and how brutal it is. 3 tight ends, if one of your tight ends goes down, there's so many 2-set formations with this offense where it's 2 tight ends, especially when you're trying to run the ball with David Montgomery. So I just don't see a situation where Dan Campbell has 2 active tight ends. I just think that's one injury away from, okay, now you need to go out and get a guy. But if you want to keep James Mitchell, go for it. If you want to keep Parker Hesse, go for it. I just think there's better options out there.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see. I mean, they have the tight end position is something that's surprised me with Shane Zylstra getting cut. Assuming Daurice Fountain gets cut, we don't have an official state. I haven't seen anything yet, so if you guys do, let me know. DPJ was cut officially, and that was, man. And I put out something on Twitter today. I've been rooting for him. When they first acquired him last deadline, I'm like, wow, okay, I like DPJ. And then Josh Reynolds departs, and I'm sitting there going, well, DPJ, capable wide receiver. He's put up, not even just the 800 yards, but he's shown he can play, at least contribute to some capacity. That's all I expected out of him. And then this offseason shows up, fails the conditioning test, struggles OTAs, struggles minicamp, struggles training camp, struggles preseason. You see the theme here? A lot of struggling from DPJ. All right. And I'll give it to you, Booner. You were right. I thought he could bounce back. I thought he could bounce back. And he didn't bounce back. It got worse. It got even worse. You have Isaiah Williams, an undrafted free agent, looking at DPJ saying, hey, dumbass, you're supposed to be over here. That was the red flag for me. That was, well, not the only, but one of the many. But that was the big, like, oh, no. When we were on this, I'm like, it's over. It's over. It's over. And that's how I felt. That's how I felt. So,
hey,
Booner, take it away. Take your victory lap. DPJ, I'm very disappointed in him. Very disappointed.
No, I'm not going to take a victory lap with DPJ. I promised I wouldn't. Listen, I tell how it is. I tell you guys all the time, when I see something, I just tell it how it is. And I'll have my takes. Yeah, I'll have my takes. Some of them might be good, some might be bad. The DPJ thing was just, it wasn't even like a take or anything. It was just, we got into minicamp. The man misses. He fails his conditioning test day 1. And then, all right, he's back day 2. Okay, cool. But you came in right away, just not ready to go instantly. And then I'm like, all right, there's something going on with DPJ because Dan Campbell, and guys, this is the thing with Dan Campbell, and everyone in the chat can agree with me on this. Dan Campbell tells the truth to the media. Maybe sometimes it could be to a fault, and maybe sometimes it's really good for us to be able to know what's actually going on in this room. But when Dan Campbell is asked a question, he typically he tells the truth. And when he's saying all these good things about all these other wide receivers and all these other players, and then DPJ gets asked in minicamp and he has nothing good to say, and he's like, yeah, we'll see what happens with them. We'll see. That's a problem. Instantly, my red flag goes off and goes, there's something going on with DPJ here. Like, and the biggest thing of all of this, it has nothing to do with DPJ. I think it has to do with when 3 or 4 months ago, when the offseason hit, Josh Reynolds signed somewhere else, and I came and I said, hey, there's a problem in this wide receiver room outside of Khalif Raymond. Like, you have Amon-Ra, J-Mo, Khalif Raymond. After that, who do you have? And, like, I think that's, like, the biggest news out of all of this, guys, is, like, you don't have anyone outside of Isaiah Williams now who ended up just being an undrafted free agent. You didn't address the wide receivers, really, in the draft because you knew you had DPJ and you thought you had some guys. And then you get an undrafted free agent. You're undrafted free agent. Out of every single move you make in the offseason, you decided your undrafted free agent ends up being the guy that stands out. Like, to me, it was like that was a little bit of a need. Obviously, J-Mo's going to step up for Josh Reynolds. but you're losing a wide receiver within that core 4 of wide receivers. And you try to just say, hey, let's address it with DPJ. And that was just never going to be the answer. And I love all the people who maybe thought DPJ was going to be the answer. I respect it. I'm a Michigan man. I respect the local guy. It just from the jump, like he didn't do anything last season. You could tell he was struggling. And it's tough. It didn't work out. You essentially gave up a 6-round pick and then you signed him for another year. I don't know what the guaranteed money was, but you lose like a 6-round pick. Brad Holmes 6-round picks. Mekhi Wingo, Christian Mahogany, Malcolm Rodriguez, and James Houston. You gave up that type of a player for DPJ to basically catch a couple passes for you over the last year. So, or half a season, sorry. So it just wasn't hindsight. Yeah, you can always look back and say, hey, that was tough that you did that. But I just think, and I'll stick to it, what I said back in March, I just think they should have done something different in this wide receiver room with losing Josh Reynolds. It's not bringing Josh Reynolds back because he got $9 million in 2 years. I saw someone today say the Lions offered him $5 million in 2 years, so he basically got double. But you had to address this at some point, and DPJ was supposed to be it, and obviously didn't even come close to being it. He ends up getting cut. It's brutal.
This was DPJ's spot to lose. And not only did he lose it, but he probably just lost his whole career in the NFL potentially. I mean, he was a guy that just needed to hold his own. He had, I believe, 3 catches in the preseason, looked awful in route running, looked awful in effort. And to Jeff's point, how do you have Isaiah Williams, who's probably had this playbook in his hand for 4-5 months max? DPJ, you got traded here last offseason. You didn't even play that much. So you had the opportunity to put your head in the playbook and study and do whatever you needed to do. The exposition was between you and 2 undrafted guys. There's a guy out of Michigan who played in a Power 5 conference, went into Cleveland, wasn't a star by any means, but held his own. DPJ, outside of injury, should just be embarrassed himself. I'm sure he's a great guy off the field, but the effort that it looked like he was putting in with Detroit was absolutely pitiful. So I was wrong about DPJ. I thought he'd at least be able to give you 200 or 300 yards. I wasn't pounding for the table to be wide receiver 4. I really didn't care who it was going to be. But the fact that he shit the bed that bad is just embarrassing, in my opinion. It makes Brad look liable. Like it gives Brad a X on his hit board that he really did not need. Like DPJ is more than capable of winning a wide receiver 4 spot in the NFL, and he just didn't do it.
And I think this situation, it's shown it's favorable to wide receivers. I mean, you have an undrafted free agent in Isaiah Williams, who's very good. I don't want to take anything away from him, but he's succeeding. I mean, to your point, Klotz, he had it all. I mean, it was his to lose just to make the roster, not even be like wide receiver 3 or 4. I mean, just to make the roster. And how many times did Dan just hammer the same point about how you'd like to have a different wide receivers that can bring different skill sets like DPJ, like a big body wide receiver. You throw up and get a jump ball or a 50-50 ball. He's just kept hammering that, like how that's something that they would like. It's not something you must have, but it's something that is ideal. And he still didn't make the cut. I mean, it's like, it stinks, And I'm going to be honest. I see people in the chat, and even for me, who's been supporting him since he got here, I see people like, what maybe it's something on, maybe we're being too hard on him. Dude, he had every opportunity to succeed here. Like, I can't even give him a bone here. I mean, I don't know. I don't, because I'm serious. It would be
zero excuse for that.
It would be easy for me to come on the show tonight and just be like, oh yeah, but this or that or that. There's no excuses, man. I mean, he failed. And I'm sure maybe he goes somewhere else. Maybe he turns into the player he once was, but here it was a failure. And that was the bottom line. It was a failure.
There's no excuse. Like, you get paid millions of dollars. Like, maybe it's going through. Okay, then step away from the game. But you have to go out there and perform. And he got brought in, and this is what makes me. This is what actually gets me a little steaming a little bit. Is 3 months ago, 4 months ago, I'm sitting here trying to tell the people this is something to keep an eye on. And you get there's all these people like, no, Booner, you're the clown. Oh, and there's people out there on my side saying, oh, no, there actually might be, like, shout out Mike Payton on Twitter. I saw him too. He said back in March, he had questioned the wide receiver room. Like, and people being like, well, it's not that big of a deal. It's wide receiver. No, wide receiver 4 on any contending team, to me, is something to keep an eye on. Whether you think there's like the Eagles, there's a wide receiver 4. Oh, who's this team's wide? I really don't care, because if a top 3 guy goes down for a couple games, You need someone who's capable of stepping up, stepping in, and making plays, whether you're on a Ben Johnson offense or not. That's all it is. Like, this is now a Super Bowl roster from top to bottom. If you want to win a Super Bowl, like, you can't, like, if a guy goes down, someone better step up so you can still go win that Super Bowl. Like, you cannot have any, like, it's the same thing with defensive end. It's the same thing with the offensive line. When people go at the offensive line depth, it is the same thing across the board. And DPJ, they brought him in to be that wide receiver 4, to be the guy that you can rely on, be the X guy. When his number is called, he makes a play. And he didn't do it from the jump. He didn't do it last season. He didn't do it in training camp. He didn't do it in mini camp. He literally didn't, never. So I don't want to hear the excuses from people anymore, especially from months ago, the same people who were like, oh, just sit back and trust. Trust Brad. Listen, I trust Brad Holmes with everything. He is human. He is going to have flaws when it comes to building a roster, and he knows it. That's why he signed DPJ 4 months ago, and he has to be the one to take the humility and be like, I have to cut him. He is not good enough for a Super Bowl roster. So I respect the hell out of Brad Holmes for being able to go out there and cut a guy that he just signed 4 months ago to a vet minimum. Like that I respect him for that. But like to say that, hey, wide receiver 4 wasn't a problem 3 months ago, and it's really not that big of a deal because you have JMO to step up. You have the running backs and the tight ends. No, there's injuries that happen in the NFL. Jeff, you say it all the time. Like, to win football games, that you are going to deal with injuries in the NFL. It's going to happen. Now, if you can withstand those and find ways to win games without those, especially if you have a Super Bowl roster, figure it out and have that depth. You need that depth. And that's what DPJ was supposed to be. That's exactly what it was. And to Brad's point, like, how many mock drafts did we do of them drafting a wide receiver at some point throughout the draft? And he just didn't do it. And luckily, we got lucky and he got a UDFA with Isaiah Williams, but that isn't the type of player that you needed. And Dan's mentioned that for the last 2 weeks is we need a big body receiver. Like, we would love to have a big body receiver. Now you have to rely and just hope that you can maybe trade for someone, that you can maybe pick someone up out there that gets cut as well. And you're just scraping now. Like that, this has been a problem for months now. People didn't want to listen, and now it happens in real time, and here we are.
So are you hitting like the red panic button? Because I'm just trying to understand, Boone. Because we have these conversations where it's like, yeah, I'm not really worried about the yardage drop off. So what's like your worry?
It's like, not the yardage drop off. It's not any of that. It's more so just like, hey, Amon-Ra's missed games the last couple of years. He's had injuries. Luckily, last year he didn't miss a bunch, and he was playing through an injury. But, like, there are guys who will get injured. Like, Khalif, like, last year in the playoffs, he had that injury down the stretch. Like, you hope that there are guys, and maybe Isaiah Williams is that guy. But when you're looking at, like, an X wide receiver, or you're looking at say if JMO goes down with he's had issues with his quads and his hammies. Like, if anything happens, you need to have that. And in March, people in their mind were like, hey, we have DPJ, Khalif, JMO, and Amon-Ra. Like, people felt comfortable. I was not comfortable with DPJ. So, like, I feel like a lot more people like Jeff, and I feel like people are a little more seeing kind of where I was coming from, where it was like, hey, I know fourth wide receiver is maybe only 300-400 yards. Those 300-400 yards come in big games every year because at some point that guy, it's not just like, oh, 20 yards here, 20. No, like, someone's going to need to take a game off, and someone might get a concussion. Someone might roll an ankle. You need a guy who can step in and get you 60, 70 yards on that day. Whether you have a Gibbs that can do it or you have Laporta, you still need someone else to be able to step up in those positions. And that's where it's like, yeah, wide receiver 4 might not be big for 17 straight games, but 5 or 6 out of those 17 straight games, especially when you're working for a number 1 seed in the NFL, you better have a wide receiver 4. Look what the Chiefs just did and went and got Juju Smith, a guy that I mentioned a week ago, and signed him on a vet minimum because the Patriots are paying $7 million of his contract, and they're going to feel very comfortable with him. And Juju, guess what? There's going to be games this year, I can guarantee you, Juju Smith steps up and makes a couple plays for them. And that's not great. Like, he will. Like, if a guy goes down or they need someone to make a play, he will do it. So that's where my frustration, and I get the Isaiah Williams, but he's more so like a UDFA where like he can play and you think he's going to step up, but you still need another guy, in my opinion. And that was supposed to be DPJ. It's really disappointing, to be honest, that it ended up turning out the way it did.
Yeah, I see a comment here. I want to bring it up. Just to spark conversation. And Zay says, Brad, aggressive. Brad sucks at trading for receivers so far. That's been a bust. And again, you mentioned he's human.
Yeah.
And when you bring up the DPJ trade for the 6th-round pick, or you bring up the Trinity Benson trade for, I think they traded Trinity to the Lions, and they got a 5th and a 7th, and they traded a 6th or something like that. So the Lions got a 6th back, but it's not the end of the world. If you want to bring those up, you got to bring up the fact that he found Isaiah Williams. So,
for sure.
Yeah, and I'm in Ross St. Brown, obviously, in the 4th round. So I get it. I guess it is a hard position to kind of figure out to get guys. I get your point though, Booner. Depth is fine, and we'll honestly, I think we should talk about potential additions, and then we'll get to roster prediction because it ties right into what we're talking about. But what do you got before we get to that? What do you guys think about that comment, the Brad Holmes and maybe wide receiver being a point of trading for wide receivers specifically, like a point of he hasn't hit on those guys.
He's trading for Donovan Peoples-Jones and Trinity Benson. What do you want the payoff to be? Do you want 500-600 yards? I mean, he's giving up virtually. I know he likes to hit in the 6th round, but at some points he can. Brad Holmes has earned the right to go out and, you know what, I'm going to burn a 5th, 6th, 7th round pick. He can do that because at the end of the day, in the 4th round, he's going to give you Sion Baki. In the 3rd round, he's going to give you Kirby Joseph. So yes, Brad's going to miss, but his hit rate is much higher than his miss rate, and it's not even close. So yeah, he's not.
Yeah. Perfect. I don't think that, I'm not going to say that it's something on his, just because you're running through that's one thing with especially with the GM, if you run into an issue like this to where hey, the depth is a little low, it's easy to be well, that's one thing he's bad at. I know, again, he has found he I'm pretty sure he's the one that brought Khalif Raymond in. He brought Josh Reynolds in at the time as well. Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's brought guys in, DJ Chark. He has made the right moves when it comes to wide receiver. It's just at this current time. And you know how, I know this is right, it's because he had to cut DPJ, and he just signed him 4 or 5 months ago. So, at this current time, that was a mistake, and he realizes it. And really, do you want to say it's a mistake on him? I think anyone would have been majority of the people, 80% of the people were saying DPJ was going to be the guy. And he ends up just having a bad camp. So it's not to be honest, Dan or Brad was a part of the majority, because majority of the people, and we know this because I was the one that was on the opposite 10%. When the 90% were on DPJ. So he was with the majority, and it's tough. It's tough to be able to figure that out and kind of go through that. So I don't know. I think eventually you're not going to be perfect. We've seen it all the time. The Chiefs with the L'Jarius Sneed stuff, they were trying to figure that out, and the stuff comes out today of how mad he was. You're not going to be perfect. You can't get it all right as a GM. It's easy for us to kind of break that stuff down.
So let's bring up some options here, and I'll bring up 2 guys, and we'll probably get more as the week goes by, more guys that could potentially be added. And for all the people that are tuning in, appreciate you guys so much. We'll get into roster predictions in a little bit here. We're going to get into every position group, who we think goes, who we think stays, because guys are going to continue to get cut. But let's start with who could replace DPJ. We'll see with Daurice Fountain. Haven't read anything yet. But we'll see who they can add to the room. The first person I'm going to start off with is a name that I saw very hot on social media today, and that is Tim Patrick, because Ari Marov at My Sports Update on X put out a surprise. The Broncos are expected to move on from wide receiver Tim Patrick and are looking at trade possibilities. I think he was just released. I could be wrong.
Yeah, he was.
So disregard the trade. He's released. So
Tim Patrick just got released?
He got released. I don't know where the trade came from. He's been released. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure he got released, but we'll see. Regardless, Patrick had a great preseason, and he's returning from back-to-back years of significant injuries. So that's the first person a lot of Lions fans are talking about. Big guy, 6'4", had a pretty good preseason. Would it be a guy you'd like to add in your room? I mean, I'll wait a sec. I mean, I don't know.
I love Tim Patrick.
Okay.
I mean, this is what Tim Patrick's a guy is your wide receiver 4 or 5 outside of his torn ACL and torn Achilles, which happened to back-to-back seasons, unfortunately. Brad Holmes usually tends to like those guys. He was a wide receiver 3 since he stepped foot in the NFL, and he was undrafted out of Utah. He's 6'4", 212 pounds. He can block his ass off. He also went on 123 straight targets without a drop. So he's the definition of reliable. In the red zone, that's where he really flourished. Where did Josh Reynolds flourish? In the red zone when Jared Goff needed to move off Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta. So Tim Patrick, to me, yeah, you're worried about the injuries, but at what cost? And who else do you have that's better than Tim Patrick right now at the X spot? Literally no one. You don't have a true X wide receiver. That is Tim Patrick. He's not going to have the burst that he was, but he's a very physical wide receiver. And like we said, At that wide receiver 4 spot, you're asking the guy to do pretty much two things. Know your assignment and block. You got to run the slant route. You got to run the hitch route. You got to run the go route and occasionally probably run the post route. There's obviously going to be different factors in there, but if you can do that, when you're asked to, just run the route to make sure that the other concepts going around them stay on their track. And then when they run the ball with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, block your ass off. Those are all things that Tim Patrick can do. If he were to come to Detroit, I think his last 2 years in Denver, he had like 700 plus yards. I don't expect him to come into Detroit and get 700 plus yards. But even after major injuries, Tim Patrick is absolutely a guy that can go get you 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, and give you effort in the run game. So I'm all for Tim Patrick. There's nothing to lose here at all.
Yeah, to that too. And by the way, guys, I just want to do this. I don't think he's released. They said that he is the Broncos are moving on. But they said the Broncos are moving on and they're exploring trade options. That was reported about 3 hours ago, unless there's something new. So, like, I think essentially they're saying, "Hey, we're done." I think it's when
assets for him.
Yeah, I think when teams do that, especially a guy like Tim Patrick, who people are going to want, like teams like the Lions, who are 27th on the waiver wire, are going to be sitting there and they're like, "Hey, we need to make a move to be able to get an opportunity," or someone in front of us, 26 teams in front of us, are going to have an opportunity to be able to pick him up. So that's where I think it comes down to with him. I'm in, and I get it too. Like, I completely understand the injury situation. Like an Achilles injury, especially as a wide receiver, an ACL, like those are 2 major injuries. And realistically, like, you just never know what a guy's going to be like when he comes back from that. Now, the thing with Tim Patrick is, like, when he did play the last 2 seasons before he gets hurt, back-to-back 700-yard seasons. And on top of that, I'm pretty sure he had 5 touchdowns 1 year and 6 the other. The thing with him, and this is where it comes down, like the DPJ situation. And this is why, again, it gets me even going more with DPJ. You're not expected to do much. Like, Tim Patrick comes in here, he's not expected to go out there and put 700 yards up. It is 300 to 400 yards, a couple touchdowns in the red zone if we need a big body, things like that. Like, again, if a guy goes down, maybe we need you to step up a little bit more for a game here or there in the playoffs. Hey, if someone needs to get the step up, hey, Tim Patrick, we need you, man. Come on, Tim, give me something. So, like, that's like the Tim Patrick role for me. I'm not looking at him to go out there and give you that 700 yards before he got hurt and had the 2 major injuries. Like that, you don't need that. You need 300-400 yards, a big body guy to take something away down the field so you can open up other guys. Like, guys, for Tim Patrick, he is coming into a perfect situation. Coming off an injury, you do have, like, Amon-Ra, Jameson Williams, Khalif Raymond, Sam Laporta, Brock Wright, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, Ben Johnson, the best offensive line in the NFL. Like, a guy coming off an injury who has had success in his career and is just like, hey, I just need another opportunity. This is like one of those comeback stories where you're like, hey, he just got put back in the perfect situation. He's a vet. He knows what his career is at this point because he's been injured and he's gone through that for the last 2 years. And now it's like, hey, we're going to take a bunch off of your plate, and this is all we need you to do. Come in and be a Dan Campbell type of guy. And I've never heard, and I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, and I've never heard anything bad come out about Tim Patrick being a bad teammate, a bad person in the locker room. So, like, this is like, it could be like, this could be a perfect fit. And again, it's, you know who he is. Like, you've seen him in the NFL. It's not like a DPJ, he had the one good year. Like, Tim Patrick's been very consistent his whole career. The only downfall, and it is a big downfall, is the 2 injuries. That's it. And I know, hey, Brad likes injured guys, but I get, hey, if you have a problem with it, and Jeff, I'll let you go. I understand, but I think, like, that is like, if you were to like write up the ideal fit for the Detroit Lions wide receiver room right now, it would just be like Tim Patrick.
Yeah, and I love, my favorite thing is when we bring up Tim Patrick, and it's like, yeah, like all the things, you guys made some great points, by the way. Like, this isn't to, come at your points. It was awesome. I was listening. I was engaged. And then we just say, well, he just had 2 injuries. He just had 2 injuries.
What a great way to 100% us.
He just had 2 injuries. Torn Achilles and a torn ACL. That is a little worrying. He's got the Klay Thompson. I mean, that's what I would call that, essentially. And that is concerning. I wouldn't mind. I'm not trading for him. No way in hell. Or to quote Rob Parker, no way, no how. All right, I'm trading for Tim Patrick. I think they'll cut him, and then you could sign him and bring him in. That's fine. I don't have an issue bringing him in. I'm not in love with it, though. I'm not in love with it. A player that I am starting to like John Mechie the third. All right. And now there's teams reaching out to, if you want to trade for a player, this is who you trade for. All right. And I'll explain why in a second. Because the former second round pick out of Alabama had a big preseason. Texans aren't going to be able to keep all these guys. And if they're going to trade away John Mechie, I'm on board. That's a player I would like to add for a couple of different reasons. One, I know people say, well, he's a slot. Last year for the Texans, he lined up 182 times. He lined up 100 times out wide. All right. And in Alabama, he lined up plenty of times out wide. I know he plays in both. He played 81 times in the slot last year, 100 times out wide. I think for him, that's not only a player that I like that can play football, but I think in terms of big picture, he can be your future Khalif Raymond replacement, and he's under contract for a couple of years. So I'm open to, if you're going to trade for a player, it'd be him because he's young. We all remember John Mechie played with J-Mo, I'm pretty sure. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know. I can't remember. But Brad loves Alabama guys. So I get people say he's a slot. He's 6 foot, lined up more times out wide last year than in the slot, played plenty out wide at Alabama. Saying he's strictly a slot is not true based on how they used him. He can play in the slot, but I'm open to that idea. Guys, I get adding a true X. Like I understand that. And there's going to be guys that are available. I like Robert Woods, even though he's not really a true X, but there'll be guys out there. If you want a guy that can go get you a 50-50 ball or a jump ball, there's guys out there that you're going to be able to get. So John Mechie's a guy that if you're going to trade for, I like because of kind of his versatility. And again, he can play special teams, but I know you have Isaiah Williams, but that's a guy that's available for trade that I would be open to. For anyone else, wait till someone's cut and go sign them. That's where I'm at. Tim Patrick, I'm not in love with, but I don't hate it. I don't hate it. The injuries do concern me, though, guys, more probably than others. But I'm a little more worried. And I think he's like on the other side of 30. He's like 30, turning 31 with 2 back-to-back like catastrophic injuries. It is a little concerning for me.
I mean, it's a little concerning. I'm not going to lie. But then you look at the preseason, he looks healthy again. He came back last week, had a touchdown, 4 receptions off 4 targets. So I think Tim Patrick, he's still going to be Tim Patrick, not as explosive, but you know what you're going to get out of him. With John Mechie, I love the player, but I just think you already have 4 guys that can play inside and outside. I think if add him to the roster, that's fine. But I don't think that's your solution at X because we'll get into it more, but there's a very realistic where after tomorrow, the Lions only have 4 wide receivers on their team. So if you're talking about add John Mechie as depth, I'm all for it. But as figuring out that X spot, that's what I think the Lions need to prioritize. If they're going to move off assets, go get another guy besides John Mechie. But if you're able to get somebody off waivers, Texans are calling, hey, Noah Brown, John Mechie, Robert Woods. I think all those guys are similar type wide receivers. John Mechie can line up outside just because he's got a bigger build. Like he's a little stockier than like the Robert Woods and the Noah Browns and the Tank Dells that they got going on there. But that's not a guy where I think you stick on the outside and you're like, cool, that's who we're going to leave there. I think he's somebody you got to kind of, if you're going to put him on the outside, put him in motion, kind of get him going before the play so he can kind of maneuver leverage. I don't hate it. 2nd round pick out of Bama. He was very solid. Obviously had cancer and he's come back and made a career out of it. Had a good preseason. So if the Lions bring him in, I don't have a problem. I just don't think that's the solution.
I will say this, and I want the people to know this, like keep this in mind. And I'll put a guarantee on this. The Detroit Lions will bring in a 5th wide receiver that's not on the roster currently. Like that is a guarantee. For Daurice Fountain to put out the tweet that says, wow, like the only other person, like essentially the only other 2 guys who are in the wide receiver battle that's left on this roster that we have not heard that is cut is Daurice Fountain and Isaiah Williams. And I don't see them cutting both.
You ain't going to hear Isaiah Williams.
So Isaiah Williams is in and Daurice Fountain's the one that he's tweeting out, wow, so he's out. So like it is a lock that they are going to look and bringing someone in. Now, Jeff, I don't hate the John Mechie thing. I do think, like to Klotz's point, like, dude, we had like Isaiah Williams, you have Khalif, you have Amon-Ra. Like those are like even J-Mo, you could say like you just basically have a wide receiver room with all the guys that do the same exact things. To where if you're trying to look to kind of, hey, get a couple, like Dan said in the press conference today, he was like, I say it all the time. We would love to have every single type of different option on this football team. Like we would love to have a big time X. We would love to have a perfect guy in this slot, a guy that can do both. Someone who, Jahmyr Gibbs who can do what he does. Like he was like, we would love to have all of that, but it's like, is it realistic? Sometimes maybe not, but like the Tim Patrick thing makes it a little more realistic. If you're looking at it like that, like the John Mechie thing, he's still young too, and he has a full career ahead of him. So maybe if you bring him in and you're like, hey, we could work with him and we can get him in and kind of see what he's like and kind of get a feel for it. And then Tim Patrick, you still get a Tim Patrick in and he's your guy. Like that's your X. But like, again, I think within the next 24 hours, like you're going to see more wide receivers either get cut or get put on the trade block. And this is one of those things with like on social media, like when we were at our old place and even now, like if we put something out, a lot of fans and people are like, why are you just putting this player out there? Like, is every player going to come to the Lions? Like, I think any wide receiver that gets cut or is on the trade block, Lions fans have the right to say, can he come? Do you want him in Detroit? Like that should be a tweet. That should be something for every single person that we can question, whether it's a slot, whether it's an X. Everything is open for this Detroit. I tweeted at someone today because they were coming at me a little bit like, why would we want John Mechie? Listen, this wide receiver room can use anyone. Like it's not like, hey, we need this. Like, yes, an X is a very ideal, but we know what this wide receiver, like this wide receiver room, the back end of it is a problem. And that's been known like Isaiah Williams just took this job within the last 6 days. So this isn't like he's like he is the guy. He just took the job in the last 6 days. So, like, anyone is open here. They will trade for someone or pick someone up, though.
Bring Justin Blackmon and Corey Davis out of retirement. Your
Corey
issues
Davis.
are solved. Josh Gordon. Bring me some Josh Gordon stock. All right. Maybe
I don't know about that.
Josh Gordon. Hey, he was at Mark Wahlberg's golf outing.
Shout out.
Here, locally.
Josh Gordon was.
Yeah, he was. So,
but you know what, guys? This is my thing. It's like I get the Lions do need an X, and maybe you can find it like the best of both worlds where you find an X that's young, like Noah Brown. I'm actually open to. I don't hate that at all. But you don't want to settle just because a dude's a certain height. All right, let's
no.
that. I get you need one of those guys, but you just go bring in a big body. Then I don't want if there's a good football player out there, I'm intrigued. But I'll say this, Booner, you already said your guarantee is they're going to add a wide receiver not on the team. I'll do you one better. Their next acquisition. Tim Patrick, fine. Or the guarantee, and we'll just say a guarantee of mine, I think will happen is they're going to add a Houston Texans wide receiver, Noah Brown, Robert Woods, whoever the hell it is, John Mechie, maybe. I threw it out there. They're gonna add somebody from the Houston Texans. They have too many wide receivers. Like they're gonna cut a good wide receiver, or at least trade away a good wide receiver. So we'll see who it is. But I get your guys' point about the X. I see people chiming in too about Corey Davis. I mean, the Corey Davis stuff.
He's gone,
Western Michigan, very, very, very good player.
Can I be honest with you guys though?
Hung up the cleats, boys.
I just don't want like any like washed up guy. Like no offense to Corey Davis too, by the way, shout out Western Michigan. But he
very
retired.
Good player.
Very good player. But he's retired. Like what was he doing for the last 2 years? Like nothing. So like I don't know. At least with Tim Patrick, he's at least been working to get back. Isaiah Hodgins, I mean, that's a guy who's had like 2 good games in his career too. I would like a proven. I would like someone who had a really good camp, and they just like Jeff, the Houston Texans thing. I love that because they just have too many guys. They just don't have enough room to keep everyone. It's impossible. So like, I just want someone who it's like, hey, this guy had a really good camp. We can't do it.
Good camp. And the fact 6'4", 212 pounds, Boone.
Who?
You need Tim Patrick. It's what you need.
Yeah, and he's had a good offseason too, coming off injury. So like the Tim Patrick, I'm all in on. I'm all in on that. It just to me, it's like there's when you are just throwing these names out, and I said like, hey, let's just let people throw names out. Like at least like let's not throw out like guys who have been retired for years or guys who are like, hey, we would love to see him come back into the Josh Gordon, man. He was electric back in the day.
Anquan Bolden.
Yeah, like I don't want any of those types of players, dude. We're trying to win a Super Bowl here. We're not trying to hand out participation trophies.
Bring Cephas home. Z-Dish.
That one catch.
I mean, bring Cephas. You know what? Give me Antonio Brown. You know what? Why don't we just start signing them all? Bring Antonio
we're
Brown.
Going back in the slot, Jeff. Now we're just going back in the slot. That's what we not need. We just tried talking about. You need an X. You need a bigger body guy. Boone didn't like that.
No. That's what I don't want to do. Things like that.
Not a Dan Campbell guy. Not a Dan Campbell guy.
From Antonio Brown.
I would rather bring Calvin Johnson in right now than any of these guys that we're naming.
Another interesting room to watch, boys, is the Packers because they're like 5 or 6 deep at wide receiver, and if they have a position of need, you could see it's very doubtful. But if somebody's balling out on the defensive side, a guy like Bull Mountain falls. Bo Melton falls to waivers, which is very unlikely, but they have a loaded wide receiver room. And if you can steal somebody from a division rival, go and do it.
Hey, to all those Detroit Lions fans, I just want to throw all those people out there who wanted to take Malik Willis number 2 overall in the 20-something draft. The Detroit Lions select Malik Willis, quarterback, Liberty. Like, hey, you guys got him. He's in the NFC North for you now. All of those people who wanted him in the NFC North, he's here. Welcome. How about imagine taking Malik Willis. Well, that was the Aiden Hutchinson draft, correct? Imagine taking him over Aiden Hutchinson, and you're sitting here with Malik Willis, and Hutch is like, oh my gosh, that would be embarrassing. That would be like looking back at some careers might have been over if that would have actually happened, and that didn't work out.
Man, you know what? Shout out to Adam, man, because we made fun of everybody who wanted Malik Willis. But yeah, it's crazy. He's part of the Packers, guys. I mean,
there's takes, and then there's just bad, and that's just bad.
Well, I will bring this up. I want to transition here, get into more of the entire roster. Let's go through position groups and discuss who stays, who goes, who we think will go, who we think stays. I think it's very safe to say at quarterback. We'll start there, I guess. So we'll start at quarterback. We'll kind of work our way across the offense and defense. We'll start with quarterback. Dan Campbell said today that, and I liked a couple of little nuggets he threw in there. Just a couple nuggets. You watch Boone?
Sprinkles.
Hey, listen. When Dan Campbell speaks, I mute everything in my life and I listen. So yes, I did watch.
So you know what I liked? Hey, Klotzy. Hey,
well,
you know what I like?
Talk to me, Jeff.
So this is what he said. All right. So he's talking about the quarterbacks. He said, I wasn't a huge fan. He's comfortable with the quarterback room. We kind of know that, at this point, Nate Sudfeld being the backup, not ideal. Didn't play in the last preseason game. It's not the here nor there. He did say Jake Fromm. He could play a little bit. He did say Klotzy. He said he could play a little ball now. That's what he said. He could play a little ball now. But what he did say is they asked him, and I forgot who it was, and I'd love to give credit. That's on me. But they asked him, would you be comfortable if Jared were to go down, let's say, hypothetically, knock on wood, week 1? Would you be comfortable with who's in there? He said, well, yes, because you have to rely on 3 phases of the game anyway. And he did say in that, the doc, by the way, if it was the doc, and Ryan, thank you for that. Shout out to the doc. Don't tell him I forgot that, by the way. Don't bring that up Wednesday. But he did say that a quarterback could finish the game and a different quarterback could start the next week. I need to repeat. You hear what I'm saying? A quarterback could finish the game and a different quarterback could start next week, because then you'd have to game plan for that said quarterback. The only quarterback I know that they have to game plan for specifically, change the offense a little bit, would be one Hendon Hooker. So I'm thinking, at least from that, I'm like, okay, but hey, I'm not saying he's proclaimed him as the backup. All I'm saying is the backup position, we'll see how it goes. I still like Hendon Hooker. We already had that discussion. I think at this point, boys, and I'll just get this out the way, Jake Fromm, I think he's cut, and they keep the 3 guys they had. I think they keep Jared, Sudfeld, and Hendon, unless someone gets cut. That's an immediate upgrade. We already talked about Bailey Zappi and all those guys. I think that quarterback would replace Sudfeld, but the way he was talking up Sudfeld, I mean, he did say he's been in the offense for 3 years. He knows the playbook. It was tough, but that's what I think happens. Fromm out the door, maybe on the practice squad, who knows? But they keep the 3 guys they had, unless there's an immediate upgrade. That's what I'll go.
Klotzy?
Listen, Jared Goff, quarterback 1. Hendon Hooker, quarterback 2. There's no discussion. That boy Fromm looked like he was taking your mama to prom on Saturday night. He was dropping dots. He's without a doubt, better than Nate Sudfeld. So if you're asking me, I think there's a chance that both these guys get waived at the bare minimum. I don't think Nate Sudfeld's spot is locked up whatsoever. And if you guys are both going to say Sudfeld, I'll be happily the one to say Jake Fromm, because I do not want to see another snap of Nate Sudfeld on the field. At least Jake Fromm knew how to get the ball down the field. He would have had a touchdown, but he couldn't. But who was it? Jake Funk? The Fromm to Funk connection was buzzing all the way down to the 25-yard line. He dropped a wheel right in between his paws, and he couldn't catch it. So Jake Fromm showed me more than Nate Sudfeld has the past 2 years. So I don't care if it's your quarterback 3. I don't care if he knows the playbook. Jake Fromm, a guy that won at Georgia. Nate Sudfeld won where? Oh, nowhere. Who has more intangible skill? You can't really decide. So give me the guy that looked better this offseason. I don't care if it's in one game, because Nate Sudfeld looked ass in training camp and preseason. You have no argument to stand on besides he knows the playbook. Give Jake Fromm 6 months. He'll know the playbook, and that's all I'm worried about. And you can send them both to waivers and put fucking Sudfeld on your practice squad if he knows the playbook so well that he can teach it to every player on the fucking team. But I don't care. Get Nate Sudfeld off. I'm done looking at him. Give me Jake Fromm.
I'm done looking at him.
Yeah.
I like
How about that? I don't know. Hey, I'm you can't
get him out of my sights.
You can't disagree with anything that Klotz says. Hey, as much as Klotz is going to be wrong, which I hate it because it's not wrong.
Go ahead,
I mean, no. Like, I hate that you're going to be wrong because Fromm's going to probably be in the next 24 hours cut from this team. He'll probably be on the practice squad, though, to be honest. I think Fromm will be on the practice squad. But, Nate, that means you're essentially rolling with a 4-quarterback kind of role there. And I don't – like, if they cut Shane Zylstra to keep 4 quarterbacks so they can have 3 on the active roster and Fromm on the practice squad, that's kind of a problem to me. Like, that's an issue. I do have the video here, fellas, and you guys are going to come on screen here. I have the video here of Dan Campbell talking. Just so we have it in context here of what Dan was saying, because the way and if you guys don't watch Dan Campbell press conferences, again, this guy tells the truth, and the way he speaks, like, I feel like it's hard for Dan Campbell to hide emotion sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, the way he talks about some players, like when he was talking about DPJ, you could tell he was a little like man, like, yeah, like he was like, I wanted him to work out so bad. Like, he didn't obviously say it because they didn't announce it, but like after they announce it and you go back and listen, you're like, oh man, like you could tell a little bit with DPJ, like he wanted that thing to work out.
I feel you, man. I feel you on that.
Yeah. So we'll play the Dan Campbell thing here. This is him. It's like a minute long just on the quarterback situation.
Yeah, it's tough to say. I mean, I would love to say we're targeting that. We're just going to take it as it comes. We'd always said long term that we were kind of shooting for Tampa.
Oh, this is DJ Reader. Hold on.
And see.
Boone,
quarterback. Here it is. Let the fuck it.
Is it safe to say then today that Nate still
shout out the doc.
Yeah, I mean, I think they.
That was
It's hard to answer that because they're again they both bring something different, you know, and you could easily say one of them gets you out of the game and another one is the other one starts for you if something happened the next week, and you know, so I mean you're going to use all those guys, I guess is the best way to say it. So.
Hey, well,
Nate Sudfeld would definitely be the guy that would just go out there and start for you. He would be the guy that would start for you.
Yeah, he would start his career in coaching. That's what he should start.
I don't know how to take that because Dan was like, he was like, is Nate Sudfeld still number 2? And just right away he's like, yeah. And you're like, oh no, please no. Like, why? That's just like weird, like initial reaction for Dan. It's just it's weird to me. It feels like Nate's like their son that they don't want to give up on. They're like, you got this, son. Like, we have a better kid coming up. Like, the younger brother is better at every sport, but we just want to support that older son until like we want to hang on to it. And then, like, that's what it feels like with Nate Sudfeld, where they're just like hanging on. I don't know. Like the Hooker thing, he just needs to develop. Like, I just like. They're obviously not going to go get a different quarterback. Like Klotz and I were saying, like, get rid of Sudfeld and Fromm and just go get another quarterback and roll with that. Like, obviously you can upgrade your room. Like, that room could be upgraded so fast if you wanted it to. And it's like they're refusing to do it, and they like what they have. And if you have to, and maybe this is just me, if you don't think Hooker's that ready, and again, like I wrote in my notes today because I just wanted people to be very clear on this. Jeff and I talked about this on the weekend too a little bit. Hendon Hooker's ceiling is unbelievable. Like, this kid is going to be very, very good in the league. Like, what he did on Saturday, running the ball, and like Dan said, like, he wasn't forcing runs. He was just playing quarterback, and he ended up running for 90-something yards. Like, unbelievable. But for him to do that, like, Hendon Hooker's going to have a great career, and whether it's being the backup for the Lions or moving on and when taking over for Jared Goff in 3 or 4 years, whatever it is, he's going to be very successful. But if you're answering questions and saying we might have to run 2 quarterbacks out there for the back, you don't have a great quarterback room, in my opinion. Like, Sudfeld isn't it, and obviously they don't think Hooker's ready. So like, you're having to run Nate Sudfeld out there with Hendon Hooker back. Like, what are we doing at that point? You're a Super Bowl contending team. Like, if you don't think that either guy is ready and you're going to run both of them and you can just go get someone, upgrade the room, do what you did with Teddy last year. But like, either have faith in Hendon Hooker and go all in on that as your backup, or go get someone. But don't sit here and say you're going to run 2 quarterbacks with Hendon Hooker and Nate Sudfeld. Like, what are we doing? That's my only problem. I feel like I've been that's my only problem.
Well, and the one point I will add is I understand the experience part of it. Like, you want a quarterback in the room that has experience, but I don't know if it's Sudfeld. That's my point. Maybe it's someone else, but maybe the guy who's been in the offense for longer can kind of mentor Hendon. I don't know how they look at it, but whatever. I get having one guy that has experience. We'll see maybe if a guy that has experience gets released in the next couple of days. We'll move on, though, to the next position group. Running backs, I think they keep 4. Very simple. I think they keep 4. Craig, Vaki, everyone else, practice squad or cut.
RIP to Jake Funk.
It might be the end of the Jake Funk era.
Practice squad.
Punk the funk, man. Can't punk the funk.
And yeah, in this case, they're going to punk the funk. That's how.
Hey, would you rather have Jake Funk or Jamar Jefferson in the practice squad?
Jamar Jefferson. It's not even close.
I think he
could be an RB3 on any given team. I don't understand. Like, I'm happy. Like, great that he's with the Lions. I don't understand what he does staying with the Lions. Like, Jamar Jefferson is like a solid NFL running back. He could be RB3.
He's gonna get picked up somewhere. He's gonna get cut and then picked up.
Yeah,
like
probably.
The Giants. Jamar Jefferson would be fine for the Giants. Got Devin Singletary, Eric Gray, and Tyrone Tracy Jr. Jamar Jefferson could make the cut there.
Wait, Tyrone Tracy Jr.?
Yeah. Remember the name, Hefe.
I will. Those are my 4 guys. I mean, any disagree? I mean, we all agree. We don't have to spend time.
Yeah, I think that's locked in.
Wide receiver, we kind of already talked about it. I mean, we kind of agree. It's who they have now, probably. We'll see with Daurice Fountain. I still don't know whether he stays or goes. I don't know. I'm not going to speak like we have confirmation. We don't, and we think they'll add someone. So we already kind of spent time on that. So tight end, we did talk about already. I think they might like Parker. You already mentioned that, Boone. They probably like Parker a lot. He's probably going to be a part of that tight end group. They cut Shane Zylstra. Probably a close battle. We kind of have our answer there. Offensive line, I think the only guys, I mean, they're probably going to cut. They're going to cut those. Yeah, they're going to cut most of those guys that they had. I mean, they'll have some. They'll have Colby, Colby, Gio, guys that they have. Coyote.
Those are the only and Skip. Those are the only 4
Skip.
depth pieces. 5, I guess. You have Skipper, Sorsdahl, Manu, Zeitler, and Yodi.
Yeah.
So those 4.
Besides the starters, obviously,
Mhm.
but yeah. Any disagreements there? I think we all. agree
No,
there.
I think we know. I don't think there's going to be like a surprise.
So the
offensive
real
line
one,
cut.
guys, is defensive line. I mean, that's
Mhm.
that's like the meat and potatoes of this conversation. I say you eat potatoes a lot, but it applies to this right now. They haven't really cut anyone. I mean, Mitchell Agude was cut, but he's playing Sam. But you haven't heard any news yet. I haven't heard anything about.
Yep.
Or you haven't, Boone. We know that for a fact. Matthew Betts, Isaac Ukwu.
Still hanging there, Boone.
They're hanging. They're all hanging in there. I mean, my pizza's on the line here. At least 2 pizzas. One, but we'll see.
To be honest, I think I have a pretty good chance to win one of those. I think we're gonna each have to buy each other pizza. Like, I think right now, I think James Houston is in. And what's crazy, like the Dan Campbell comments. Did you guys hear that after the game? We didn't really talk about it at all, but the Dan Campbell comments after the game of being like, we have a really tough choice when it comes to James Houston. I was shocked to hear that, because like Klotz and I, before the game, we were talking about it on Saturday. It was that we thought James Houston, it's all he had to do was go out there and perform. Like we knew what he did in the past. The only reason that I personally ever questioned James Houston this offseason is just because we haven't seen it since 2022. Like, that was it. It was just like, hey, we haven't seen it. So he goes out there Saturday. He does what we've been waiting for him to do. All right. He's good. Like, that's old James Houston again. He was the highest graded PFF player on the entire Detroit Lions on Saturday. He had the most pressures. He had a sack. He didn't miss any tackles. Like, he did everything he was supposed to do. So then after the game, you hear Dan Campbell being like, yeah, we're going to have a really tough decision when it comes to James Houston. And I think the reason behind that is because he can't play Sam. Like, they're looking for a little guy that's versatile. And like, that's where I think like a guy potentially like Ukwu, who maybe can do that. that ends up stepping into that spot, and you maybe keep Ukwu and you keep James Houston. But the Betts thing, I think, is the most, like, since we haven't heard anything about this defense line outside of Agude, that's where earlier today I was like, imagine if they end up keeping all three, because you need more depth there. Like, you end up keeping an extra defense. There's going to be a position group, and it happens all the time on teams, where like you look at it and you're like, we need to keep an extra player at this position because we know he's going to get picked up and we need him out. We need that depth on this roster, and we need to make sure it's at a high level, because like the Lions have had all injury. Like, they've had injuries all the time at the edge position. So I think there's a chance that you see two out of the three of these guys are obviously going to get kept. I guess it's just depending on who, potentially three, maybe. I wouldn't be shocked personally.
I don't think there's a way they kept three, just for the fact that, and this sounds like stupid, but they let go of the long snappers. So they're going to have to bring in a long snapper. So the second that long snapper comes in, you're going to have three guys there, unless you take away from another position. There
was a long snapping battle, and they kept one. They let go of the other.
Got you. Either way, they're going to have to take away from another position. If they do that, probably two position groups. They want to keep three. I think they keep both Houston and Ukwu, and they're going to take away from another position, which we get in here soon, just because they have so much depth with guys who have played there. But I think outside of, like, I really don't see Betts making a team. Practice squad, maybe, but I just don't think, when you look at Ukwu and you look at Houston, defensively, the only hole there is defensive end at the edge. So if you're telling me you're strong at linebacker, you're pretty strong at corner, and you're very strong at safety, there's no point in me, when you already have good enough depth there. That's what makes those position groups so strong, to keep adding depth there when you have a clear weakness on the opposite side of Aiden Hutchinson. And James Houston, Isaac Ukwu, they pretty much do the same exact thing. So keeping them on the roster, not only does it help the pass rush, but it's going to keep them competitive, because there's going to be an ongoing battle in that rotation every week. Who wants to get the most snaps? Because when you look at it matchup-wise, when you want to use James Houston on third down to get to the quarterback, you don't want Isaac Ukwu out there on 3rd and 1 trying to stop a run play. That's when you bring out the Marcus Davenports of the world. So Ukwu and Houston, I think they're very similar. I think both these guys find a way to make the team.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much. I agree with you. I think Houston, and I will say, I'm starting to lean Ukwu makes the team, Boone. I'm starting to lean.
One of them, either Betts or Ukwu has to, because Agude's out. Someone has to. They're not just keeping James Houston. Like, I'll guarantee you that. One of them has to make it. It just depends on who, if not both.
Yeah, I think Ukwu and Houston both. And again, I'll say this, and this isn't at you, Boone, because I think it was a conversation that had to be had about him struggling a little bit. I can't believe that it was like, and I get Dan saying it's going to be a tough decision. I'm like shocked, man. Like, even Houston, just having him on your roster, like with his potential and what he is. And you saw it on Saturday, what he can still be. Like, there's no doubt in my mind, besides your starters, obviously, he's your best pass rusher up besides that, after Davenport, who, he's got to stay healthy. But Houston, I'm glad he kind of solidified that. And there's no reason why he should be cut. He would be gone in a split second. If he was cut, someone would pick him up immediately. And Ukwu, I think Ukwu's done enough, Booner. So I think he's done enough to make the roster. If they cut Ukwu, I think I'd be shocked at this point. I still think Betts is cut. I don't think Betts makes the team. I don't know if Betts having a game on Saturday. What was it? Saturday at a sack? Was it Saturday at a sack?
No, he got pressure and led to a forced fumble, but he had a sack against the Chiefs.
Yeah, I don't think the game against the Chiefs would solidify a roster spot. I think he's gone.
This is the thing too, guys, and this is where people need to realize something with this edge group. This has been a problem on this Lions team for like multiple years now. Like this has been like an issue. Remember last offseason when Brad was like, let's go with the Aquara brothers. I think we have something in these guys. I love the guys we have in this room. And then all season long, your biggest problem was the edge. And this is where a little bit of frustration comes out with me. This might be the Booner frustration show, because we already know all the good things. And when you look at the bottom of the roster is when things you're really like, get you kind of heated and going. The edge group this offseason was supposed to get fixed and patched up. The Davenport, good. All right. Josh Pascal has worked out. We saw what he's done. And he's a versatile guy, in and out. Same with Levi. Oh, he can play in and out. But this James Houston, Isaac Ukwu, and the Agude obviously just got released or waived. And then the Betts thing, like, this has to work out. I feel like this is like that wide receiver situation that we talked about earlier, guys. Like this edge situation, like whoever you end up choosing with and going with, like this better work out. James Houston better be ready to go. If you bring Ukwu in, who I've been big on, he better be ready to go come regular season. Like, these guys have to make plays for you. Like, this is supposed to be a Super Bowl winning defense. So I don't know who they go with. I'll just say this, and I don't know where I was going with this whole thing, and I'm just going to be honest with that. At the end of the day, whoever they keep, whether it's Ukwu or Betts, they better be ready to play, because I'm not dealing with any more edge problems with this Detroit Lions defense. I want a Super Bowl.
With it.
And as soon as there's an issue, guess what I'm going to say? Brad Holmes, pick up your phone, go get someone. Because if Davenport goes down and you're sitting there trying to play Josh Pascal consistently on the outside, or James Houston, and it's just not doing it for you. No, like, Jeff, you were the one that brought it up about 2 months ago. The teams that win Super Bowls, they are top 5 in the NFL in sacks. And these are the guys that are going to contribute to that. Like, this is like, if you add those guys up, you're going to see talking about a James Houston. You need 5 or 6. You need Ukwu 3 or 4. You need, if Betts makes the team, a couple. Like, these are guys who are going to like make or break that. So you got to figure that out. And I hope that's why Klotz, and this is why I was like trying to say, like, I wouldn't be shocked if they have all 3, because I think they realize, especially after last offseason, like, Brad's like, yeah, that was a red flag I'm not having another red flag on my radar when it comes to my resume. And he's like, I'm keeping all of these guys, and one of those 3 guys has to work out. Someone's going to work out, and I'm going to make sure it's on my watch.
I just don't see where else you'd take off of it, because, I mean, we're about to get in the linebacker room. We might
Shane Zylstra cut. Just got cut.
Okay, but Shane Zylstra's cut, but you want to keep 3 tight ends and keep Parker Hesse.
But again, earlier to my point was that's what I said earlier, though, that if they cut him for a reason, maybe it's to keep more depth in the edge room.
I Parker Hesse on the practice squad. To keep 2. That's to keep 2, though. If you want to keep both Houston and
what I'm saying.
I'm saying for 3, all 3 of them, you'd have to cut like a Rodrigo. You'd have to cut a Vildor. You'd have to cut a Kirby Joseph.
Because
keep
before,
the 53-man
when
roster,
with the 53-man before, that was, people were under the understanding that you're getting 3 tight ends, and you're only cutting one of these.
They're not gonna. They're keeping 3. There's no way that Dan Campbell goes in the regular season with 2 tight ends. No.
But if you can keep Parker Hesse on your practice squad, and you can roll with an extra edge, like, that's just in my mind. That's where I'm looking at.
Parker Hesse on your practice squad. What happens if Brock Wright goes down for a game, or Sam Laporta?
Then you bring Parker Hesse up.
But he's on the practice. You'd have to activate him to the 53-man roster during that game, is what I'm saying. Like,
James Mitchell, like, obviously,
Brock Wright, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'd rather see a guy like Matthew Betts go to the practice squad than your 3rd string tight end, because if an injury happens, you need that 3rd string tight end to run like 21 personnel. They love running 21 personnel.
I don't know. I think they're going to find a way. Like, I just don't I just think they're going to find a way to where, if they don't want to, like, obviously you can get Matthew Betts on the practice squad. If they feel like one of those guys aren't going to make it there, like, I can't see them moving on from one of them. Like, the only way they would move on from one of those 2 guys is if they're like, he for sure is going to clear waivers, which I don't know if either one of them will.
Yeah, I would agree that I think they have 3 tight ends going in. I think just Dan Campbell, like, how he wants to have, he's going to want 3 tight. Maybe it is. I think I'm starting to believe it is Parker, that Parker guy, because
no way
Dan
James Mitchell
Skipper as your tight end 3. No way.
Yeah, I don't.
Hey, what about Penei Sewell?
Hey,
is that what you want to Penei?
He can get loose.
I'm just trying to think around the roster right now,
because no, and I get, there's a comment here, and it's D-Ray. Jeff, do you think Mitchell will make it tomorrow? And that's the guy we were kind of talking about there. I don't think James Mitchell makes it, but at this point, who knows? I don't. Or think like, even
I've seen a lot of roster 53-man projections that have us keeping Strickland and Brandon Joseph. Maybe they only just keep Brandon Joseph and keep 4 safeties, and they move on there. And then I just think they're going to have an opportunity to say, hey, which position group do we want to be deeper in? In my opinion, you have a deep secondary now. You have the 4 guys at linebacker. If you can take away a guy in the back end of the safety room or something to make sure you could just have a little bit of depth in that edge room. Like, I think on the defense, the most important room in that defense is the edge. And I think, like, if you're sitting there and you're on the fence between these guys and you're like, who do we keep? Figure out a way to keep both of them. If you have to let go of one guy in the back end of a different room that you know you're already deeper on, then do that. Like, get rid of, like, if Strickland can make it to the practice squad and you can move on and you can roll with Brandon Joseph and say goodbye to CJ Moore, let's do that. Like, that's just my mindset. It's like, you have to find I value the edge group on this defense more than a different group because I think that's the biggest need.
Yeah, and edges it is important. Now the tough part is like where do you lose depth at on this roster? I mean, we can get to like other positions now because I mean even getting to corner probably more solidified. I mean, you have Carlton, Terrion, Ennis, Amik, and you have Kendall Vildor, Khalil Dorsey
in there too.
Yeah, like that's probably what they're going to roll out with. Like obviously Stephen Gilmore didn't have a great showing.
Bro got burned.
Every time I looked up, he was giving up a big play. Wasn't fun. So it is what it is there. But yeah, it's pretty solidified. Now, when you go to safety, that's where it gets more. This is where it ties back into our conversation about other positions. I think ideally you keep 4 safeties. You have Kirby, you have Brian Branch, you have Iffy, and now, this is where it gets tough. C.J. Moore, Brandon Joseph.
You keep Brandon Joseph.
I think so too. I think so too. So 4 safeties would be where I'm leaning there, and then C.J. Moore gets cut.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Get C.J. Moore out of there.
Yeah, I think we're all in alliance there. Who do you guys? Because I know Boone, you said 4 linebackers. Who do you think? Because you got Anzo, Jack, Germ, Barnes, Rodrigo. Who do you have missing off there? That's what I'm just kind of confused on. Because I'm trying to think. Because you have your 4 linebackers there. Because that's what I was talking about. To keep 3 of them, you'd have to have 4 linebackers, or you'd have to have 5 corners. You'd have to have 3 safeties on the defensive side of the ball to keep around 3 defensive ends.
I mean, Rodrigo would be the cutoff at the end of Rodrigo, and then no one else makes it. Like,
no, I know, but that's 5.
Who is it? Anzo?
Germ. Anzo, Jack, Germ. Barnes,
yeah, I guess you're keeping 5 then. You would keep 5.
Yeah.
Because Germ's like a special teams guy, and him and Rodrigo, they'll look at that as special teams guy. How many guys are you expecting like on the defensive end of the ball? Like how many? Like what is your number that you have on your sheet over there? That you keep looking at. I see you looking over there because I don't think it has to be like a specific number, correct? Like,
no, it just has to be 53. But I'm just trying to figure out like the weaknesses on the offensive line. You're going to keep Manu, you're going to keep Yodi. Like I think they're trying to keep slim as possible. I just don't know how you keep 3. But defense, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like we can, if we want to do it tomorrow and go through the 53 man. I mean, tomorrow the roster's gonna be out. I mean, I'm just like I'm not sitting here looking at every single number, Klotz. Like I'm just saying, like, hey, if that's a depth, like my point, like I'm not gonna sit here and break every number down. But to my point, like if you're looking at your edge group, and I don't know how many times I have to keep explaining this. If you look at your edge group and you're like, hey, we need more help here, then you have to cut it off somewhere else. Like it's like the linebacker, you're not cutting off Germ, you're not cutting off Rodrigo. But like you can look at your offensive line and be like, hey, one of these guys at the back end, like can we throw one of these guys on the practice squad? Like we might have to. Like we might have to do that if you want to. Or it's hey, again, it's the opposite to where we have to throw bets on the practice squad, but he might not make it there. That's just my mindset. It's the same thing both ways. Like if you feel like to your point, like Klotz, to your point with the offensive line, I just feel the opposite with the edge group. So it's like take one of your guys on the offensive line off and give me an extra edge. That's where I'm coming from.
I wanted to look at the Doc's roster projection. The Doc, he has 12 players on the defensive line, included defensive end. So he has 12 guys. So almost half of what Klotz has, the number he has on the D. He has for defensive tackle, DJ Reader, Ali McNeil, Levi, Broderick, Kyle Pecco, and Mekhi Wingo. And then at defensive end, he has Aiden, Davenport, Josh Pascal, Isaac Ukwu, James Houston. He has a Mitchell Agude. He was cut today. So really 11.
So he had the same amount. Take Agude off and throw bets in. That's essentially what I'm saying.
So he even thinks, John, that they'll both be there. But I don't know. I'd have to look on here who because I wish, and I didn't read him. He probably talked about this. He's probably going to hate this answer for me. Where guys, like what position group took the hit a little bit? Like
I do think the 12 is possible. It's just there's got to be another position group to where you feel.
They have 4. He has 4 receivers.
Okay.
Yeah. And so you got to think they're going to add probably 1 or 2 wide receivers too. So like after like this won't even be like the final roster. There's probably going to be 2 or 3 more guys that get cut that make it tomorrow too.
Yeah, he's got 4. He's got the core 3 and then Isaiah Williams.
Yeah, so I mean, it'll just be interesting to see how it works out. You're going to find out, I think, by tomorrow when we do the show tomorrow night, like what position groups do they value and which do they like what they don't. Because like you're going to see like if they really feel like they need help on the edge, they're going to keep 12 total guys on that line there. And like some other people I see keep 10 or 11. And it just, I guess it just depends on like the safety room. I see a lot of guys keeping 5 in the safety room. Like
yeah,
take
I don't
one
think
off.
that happens.
But yeah, so I see that. I see people keeping 11 defensive line, and they'll keep 4 or 5 safeties. So like it's all right, take off the safety and add an extra defensive line and add Betts in or something like that. Betts is an example. I saw people being like, Booner, you're a bet slappy. I do have a bet on Betts.
So by default, you have to.
Yeah, but it's just more so the depth of the room.
Yeah, I mean that's I mean I get it too. Like it's the hardest evaluation because you're going to cut someone that's pretty good. I mean that's again it goes back to what we said earlier. You have a good roster. I mean someone's going to get cut that's going to get picked up. So I mean it stinks. But that's where you are at. I think that pretty much wraps it up. I mean linebackers, everything you just said, Klotz, I agree with. I think they keep those linebackers. So everyone else gets cut. Ty Summers, I think, was cut. Even Joel, Ayuk, Boonway. Iggy, I like. Hey, he was all over the field on Saturday. He's probably out.
Can we talk about this long snapper?
The long snapper battle? Yeah, that
Hogan Hagen.
Oh yeah, he
that's a long snapper if I've ever fucking heard a long snapper.
Oh, Hogan Hayden. Hogan Hayden. What a name.
He won the job. I mean, I saw Jeremy. I think it was Jeremy Reisman put out. It was a close battle at training camp. I mean, it was
Brad with another steal. Let him cook. Let him cook.
The 20-year guy. That's what
Scott Daly's been there for like 3 years now. Like starter. Like he's like a vet on the and like since Dan's been there. He's been their guy. And then the Hogan Hayden comes in. And he goes, "Hey, I'm the guy now." I'm pretty sure too, Hogan Hayden. And I think the reason he won the job. And I know it's crazy. We're talking long snapper right now. But he was a linebacker in college. Like he played linebacker, and then he transitioned to a long snapper. So it's just like now it's your long snapper making plays. Like Scott Daly probably isn't going to go out there and make as many plays. Hogan Hayden's he's ready to hit. Like,
you block a kick, you're about to get speared afterwards too. Hogan Hayden go down the sideline.
Yeah, I see. People talking about I saw that too. Hogan. I wish that we would have paid more attention to the long snapper battle. Wasn't locked in.
You wish. I don't.
I mean, I wasn't locked in. If I'm being honest. Let's see here. I'm just getting to some of these comments. Aaron says, "I bet Brad makes a trade. He's on the phone more than Booner is on bad takes." That's false, though, Aaron. Booner actually just hit twice today, so that information is incorrect. He's been hot today, so
try again, Aaron.
Yeah. Hey, well, yeah, he was pretty hot with the DPJ. I even said Booner was 100% right with that. I was wrong. Mm-hmm. Ryan says Hutch, Davenport, Pascal, Houston, Levi, Wingo. That's your edge group. Yeah. I mean, that's and by the way, guys, I want to get into more of a Q&A. So if you guys have any questions, feel free, fire them off. I think this is a good time to just talk to the people. Any questions you guys may have about the roster, any positions, any specific players, free agents, guys that are potentially being cut from other rosters, fire away, because I think today should be focused on the roster. Then tomorrow we can kind of get into other topics, whatever it is. But today, all about the roster, as it should be. And then D-Ray says we were getting an outside wide receiver tomorrow, boys. You said 4 o'clock's the time where guys are cut. That's what they got to be cut.
Yeah, it's like the official, like around the NFL final rosters are due at 4.
So we'll have the official roster tomorrow. So tune in tomorrow.
We'll have it locked in tomorrow, which that will be exciting. I'm excited to see because, like, again, we just keep getting these agent ones where the agents are releasing them to the national media and like the Adam Schefters and stuff. And like the Lions are going to release the actual thing tomorrow. So we're going to find a lot more out tomorrow. I think we only have 10 guys so far that have been released.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, by the way, I put up a poll. That's a Ukwu. Ukwu won the poll with here. I'm totaling the votes now, but it's looking pretty decisive. I mean, 95 votes, 68% favor of Ukwu.
It
No
should
surprise
be. I
there.
mean, the dude had a sack or a forced fumble in every preseason game. He didn't have one bad showing this preseason. That's why it'd be so tough to walk away from him.
So, all right, let's get to. I see some questions here, and some that we've discussed. I'll kind of give like a brief recap on it. Like Walker, thoughts on John Mechie. I gave my opinion. I like it. I think in terms of the players available, if you're going to trade for a player, I think he's probably up there for in terms of value. Like, I think that's a great value. The boys aren't opposed to it. I get the need for a big body guy. I went through the data earlier, at least the snaps. He lined up wide, lined up in the slot. He's someone that I think you could trade for and he could grow with your team rather than a guy that you sign just to patch like a Band-Aid for a year. But again, I don't hate it. Noah Brown, I guess we talked about too. Any of those Houston wide receivers, I'm cool. I'm cool with that. Sir Graves says Pascal has to be more disruptive and show a big leap. I'm assuming he means this year, which he is spot on there.
He looked good against Pittsburgh last week. He played against the ones. He made 2 early impact plays, got out of there. I think they rotate him a little bit later on in the game. But Josh Pascal, they were playing him in the preseason. He definitely held his own and made some plays. So he definitely does need to step up. And I think with Terrell Williams, he'll definitely be able to do so. Not in a major way where he's going to look like the second-round pick that they hope to. But I think you see him. He's a guy that can go get you anywhere between like 2 to 4 sacks this year. And I think that's what you're expecting out of him.
Yeah, I was shocked Pascal too. Like, even played versus Steelers. Like I was like the one that was questioning him a little bit. I'm pretty more so the guy that's like, hey, I really want to see it. Like I need to make sure that you can play before we're like, yeah, he's locked in. But obviously Pascal was locked in. It was just more so that, hey, we need to make sure he's fine. We're getting ready to go into this year. I didn't think he needed to play versus Steelers. Like after what he did the week before in Kansas City, like getting the strip sack and he was putting pressure on all game. But yeah, it was good for him to get out there, and I think he's going to be fine. I don't think, and then this is bad. Like Levi like they're both second round picks, and you would have thought Pascal would have been the guy that has taken a bigger step. I think Levi is going to be more so of that second round pick that we expected than Pascal. I think like the expectations now, and this is what's hard for some people, especially like even when we're talking other sports like the Pistons all the time. Jeff, we used to get in arguments all the time with some of these guys. Like you do have to change expectations for certain players based off where they're picked. Like that's just how it is for some players. Like Jeff Okudah picked number 2 overall. All right, in his career, like you want to change. Like in Houston, you probably are changing the expectation of what he is. That's what it for me with Josh Pascal. Because Pascal is like, I keep pronouncing that so weird, but like for me, it's just more so like he's not going to put up be that second round guy anymore that you're sitting there expecting. You would like for him to do that and turn into that, but from what we've seen, he still has a long ways to go, and the injuries constantly, like that's been a problem already this offseason, and he's always missing practice and injured, and at least from what we've heard. So that's kind of just change the expectations a bit for a guy like him.
Yeah, and I see this question too, D-Ray. Jeff, you think Mahogany will be backing up a spot in 6 weeks? Wait, what do you guys think of the Mahogany like? I mean,
I don't know what to think because he still hasn't played yet, still hasn't practiced yet. So if you're asking me, is he ready day one to step foot in the regular season, even as a depth piece if somebody was to go down? I'd say absolutely not, because I think training camp for a rookie offensive lineman in this system with Hank Fraley, you definitely need some reps. So Christian Mahogany, honestly, I probably wouldn't even expect to see him maybe suit up on the sideline at that point. But if you do that, okay, now you got to deactivate somebody else. And whoever you're deactivating knows the playbook better than Christian Mahogany. So I really would not even be expecting to see Christian Mahogany at all this season, even on the sideline. Maybe some casuals. Maybe see him in there some sweats, some nice Lions sweats.
It's a weird storyline with Christian Mahogany. It's been weird. I don't even know what to think of it, honestly.
He's still on the NFI list, which is so like I don't know. Like I guess we had to do research to see like how long that is. I think when he comes back, guys, and this might just be I'm just very optimistic. I think he's going to be fine. Like when he eventually does come back and he starts playing, like I think he could be that Colby guy to where like Colby has struggled. I still have hopes that Colby. Like he has, the thing with Colby, it's like he has it's like Hendon Hooker. Like he looks really good some plays, and then some plays he's just like, dude, what are you doing? So like I would hope Mahogany comes in and he's more consistent, and like he was supposed to be a guy that you would hope instantly could play as like a 6th, 7th man and come in if you needed it. And he just, I'm hoping by the second half of the season, it's like, all right, we can use Mahogany now if we need to.
I hope. To answer your question, D-Ray, I think in 6 weeks, I hope he gets there. If I'm being honest, I would lean towards no, if I'm being honest, because I just don't think he's got to catch up so much to get to that point. Like to what Klotz said earlier, like if he was here at the start and participating, I know he was in meetings virtually. I would be more confident if he was there physically, but it's tough. You miss a lot of training camp, and now you just roll into, and then every week, guys, now you know how the NFL is. It's game week. You're prepping every week. You're not like the training camp is your time to kind of iron out those. You have questions. You get to, you iron out some things. You get better. You could get better, but the whole week's focused on that opponent that week. Like, they're not going to be just all the time working with Mahogany. Like Hank Fraley's got other guys he's got to focus on, so training camp was his opportunity and he kind of missed it. So I don't know. I would say no as of right now. Let's see. Steve, mailbag of all positions. What spot do you think gets filled by a guy not on the roster? I think they're eyeing a tight end.
I mean, it's got to be wide receiver. It could be tight end, but you are not entering the season week 1 against the Los Angeles Rams with 4 wide receivers on this roster. I think it's more likely to, and I was going at Booner, it's more likely to keep 2 tight ends on the roster than 4 wide receivers. You have to have a 5th guy. So that's a lock there. I think it's a lock to get 2. So.
Yeah, wide receiver. I said it earlier today. I'll guarantee you that there will be a wide receiver signed or traded for within the next couple of days with the Detroit Lions. Like there is a guy right now that is not currently on this roster that will be a Detroit Lion in the next 48 hours. Like I'll guarantee that because they are letting go of Daurice Fountain, and maybe that wow tweet from Daurice Fountain was like, wow, I made an NFL roster.
See that, but then he wiped his Twitter of all the Lions stuff. That's
maybe he's like, here we go, boys, it's time to go.
Yeah, locking in.
I don't know, but like just by that, it's just like it's a lock. Like you have to bring someone in. You have to.
Burning issues. Do we trade for Josh Reynolds?
That would be crazy. No, oh my god,
bring him back.
I'm going back to your ex.
I didn't realize.
What?
I didn't realize the contract situation that happened with Josh Reynolds.
Yeah,
we talked about. Either. Yeah, I think it was Dave Burkett who tweeted it out today at someone, and I just didn't know. Like, I get like, we offered him 2 years, $5.5 million, and he was like, "No, I don't want that." Or the Lions pulled it back, I think, or something like that. In the tweet, he said that the Lions pulled it back, and then he went to Denver and they offered him 2 for $9. And he was like, taking that double. Like with taxes and everything, you're essentially making double. Yeah, great for him. But like, that's just like, man, because it was easy today. I'm being honest. It was easy. When DPJ got cut today, I texted you guys in the group. I was going through it a little bit. And I was just like, why didn't you just resign Josh Reynolds? Like there would be no issues. There would be 0 issues if you just resigned that man. Yeah, with JMO, but like,
because Jamo's going to be the wide receiver. They're going to run the fuck out of the rock. They're going to be checking it down to Amon-Ra, St. Brown, Sam Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs. They have so many weapons there that I just think they realized that Josh Reynolds really wasn't anybody that they needed to bring back.
Now it shows you did, though.
I just think I think this just shows that they're very confident in what they have outside of that wide receiver core. The wide receivers that they do have, the offensive line, the tight end, everybody that they have, they're very confident. That's why I'm not sweating it that much. Like whoever they bring in.
Oh, no.
No, Boone, you're thinking we
this is deja vu.
This is what we disagree on. Or actually, let's have this. I'll ask you this question: if they bring in Tim Patrick, how many yards is he getting this year?
300 yards, 400.
I think
there you go.
But I'm still. Those are the kind of Klotz. I don't like that. I'm not sweating. I'm sweating.
I'm not. I trust if Brad Holmes is not sitting there and he's like, okay, we need to go get a wide receiver. We got to. Brad Holmes probably doesn't think this team needs a wide receiver that badly because they have so many weapons around him. It's a run-first football team. We talked about it last week. When you look at how the Lions are made, how the Miami Dolphins are made, very similar.
But Josh Reynolds,
I thought earlier today we made a lot of progress.
What we agreed on is that
in March we had this exact conversation, and everyone was like, "Oh, it's okay. You got a 4th guy."
This is where I kind of let you get away with it, but where me and Jeff separated at is Jeff was like, DPJ's the guy. I said, I don't even care if it's DPJ. Whoever they have is fine because it's a wide receiver 4 spot. I think we're looking way too much into it. They could go bring in Jacoby Myers' second cousin who has never played before. I don't care. Like, whoever they want to bring in, whoever Brad's comfortable with, I really don't care because they're not going to be a focal point of this offense. They're going to be legitimately probably the 6th or 7th look on this team.
But you care if we have offensive line depth or we have linebacker depth, but like yes, you don't care about wide receiver depth because it's just.
I think when you have when you talk about at the position of wide receiver, you have 4 good wide receivers because we're talking about pass catchers. In my opinion, when you look at this team, it's full of pass catchers. You have 4 wide receivers, 2 running backs. I would say 1 running back if you want to add Mbaki, that's fine, and then 2 tight ends that can catch the ball. So you're looking at a guy that's probably going to be just asked to run the right routes and catch the ball once every 7th time. Like that's all you're going to be looking for. And I think there's numerous guys around the NFL that are in the similar tier. Whoever they want to bring in, that's fine. Either way, I'm not doing jumping jacks. I'm not going to be screaming to the heavens or pounding the dirt. Like, I don't care. They could bring Denzel fucking Mims back for all I care.
Denzel Mims
comfortable with it, that's fine. Like, I'm not throwing a fit about it.
Well, the mister says, do you think Sorsdahl needs to be moved back to guard? He ain't a tackle. I don't know if he's a tackle. I'll just say that. I mean, I like Colby. We all, hey, solid human. Can play a little football, but he struggled this preseason. I mean, bad. And he was playing right tackle, I think. He's a guard, in my opinion. Based off, you have an entire year, and he still looked rough. Really rough, actually.
Do you think it's because he's not in the right position, or like where's this?
Yeah. I think he'd be like a solid guard in the NFL, but there's no way that man's an NFL tackle. Even a Giovanni Manu last week, who's played at British Columbia and is the definition of development product, has looked better than Colby Sorsdahl as a whole this offseason, and that's saying a lot. So they don't have a choice right now because they moved him to tackle, and you don't have another backup tackle besides Skipper and Manu, and you really aren't comfortable with putting Manu out there. Colby's at least played some reps there, so they're stuck there, but next year in the draft, 1st, 2nd, 3rd round, please, for the love of God, go draft an offensive tackle.
Yeah. Yeah, it was rough.
Brutal showing.
It was rough. Absolutely. We'll move on here. Let's see. Atur. I think I butchered this man's name, but I like how I say it, so I'm going to keep saying it that way. Do you think they signed someone decent to pressure Jake Bates or avoid putting even more pressure on him? We know the leg is there. It's a great question. I've said I'm cool with not bringing anyone in, just letting Bates continue to get better. The thing the risk you're taking, there's positives and negatives. I'll give you the positives. Positives is you bring in competition. Awesome. Put a little pressure on Bates. The negatives, you're planting that. Kicking is mental, and you're already kind of creeping into his psyche a little bit. Like you bring someone in, it's like, oh no, I don't have the job. Like, okay, now every kick, I'm feeling more pressure. It's better, in my opinion, just to let him go out there stress-free, not stress-free. There's always stress, but not having the idea of someone just behind him, breathing down his neck, like, boss, but saying like, I'm going to take your job if you miss this kick. So that's where I'm at. I'll let it just rock, let it rock. And then later in the season, if he's struggling, whatever, maybe you bring someone in. But I wouldn't bring in someone in right now before the season starts and shake them up a little bit. Get them all tripping over nothing. So I think he's been fine, to me. Couple mistakes, but he's fine. I think he'll be all right.
Honestly, I'm with you, Jeff. Just let the kid kick. Like, just let him just keep getting better. You know what his ceiling is. It's like a skill positional player where it's like he's just working on figuring this thing out, and his ceiling is extremely hot. Like, he's got the leg for it. He's out there making these 60-yarders, 50-yarders consistently. What did he go 6 for 7 or something in training camp throughout the preseason? So he's had a good preseason outside of 2 kicks, a PAT and 1 other kick. So just like let the kid build confidence. This is his literally first calendar year still, because UFL started this calendar year, first calendar year ever kicking field goals competitively. Like, so he's still learning. He's got the leg for it. Dan even said it at the end of the game Saturday in the press conference. He was like, hey, my mind has not changed on him. Even though he missed a kick in Ford Field, his mind has not changed on him. You just got to keep letting him learn, let the consistency build up, let the confidence build up in a guy like him, and he's going to end up being a really good kicker, I feel like. And the reason I know that this is going to happen, like Riley Patterson just got cut. You remember how many times Riley Patterson got brought in here to this Detroit Lions team?
A couple times.
He just got waived again in the last couple days. So like a guy like him, if they really thought Jake Bates needed help, they would have already brought Riley Patterson into the building already. So like I think they're rolling with him. Let him go through the year. Let him get regular season kicks. Let this man build up his resume. Let him get the confidence and just see what happens from there. And if he ends up missing kicks, all right, go out there in the middle of the season and get Riley Patterson. Go out there and find someone. There are a lot of free agent kickers out there consistently. There are teams all the time who go through that. Obviously, contending teams do not. So you hope Jake Bates works out because you don't want to be the only contending team that's looking for a kicker in December when in 2 months you could be kicking for a Super Bowl. So hopefully it does work out, and I think it will, but let that be. Let Jake Bates just go out there and cook.
Yeah, I don't have much to say outside of what you guys did. With Jake Bates, it's all mental at this point. As the intangibles to kick a 60, even 70-yard field goal if he really wanted to during training camp and warm-ups. He has the leg. He can do it all. Right now, it's him focusing on just getting the game down. And to Jeff's point, to Booner's point, I think if you add somebody in there, it just shakes it up when it doesn't need to be.
Iron Skull says, if JMO breaks out this year, does he break the bank with his contract, or do they re-sign him for cheaper / let go?
If he falls out this year, he's asking for money. That's just what it is. Like it is. That's hey, welcome to the NFL. Who is the team? Oh, wait a second. The Miami Dolphins have 2 elite wide receivers. I was looking at the wide receiver cap today when CeeDee Lamb, and shout out CeeDee Lamb. I know a couple weeks ago I said the Dallas Cowboys are dead, top 5 pick because CeeDee Lamb wasn't going to show up. He showed up and they got a deal done. Go look at the Dolphins. I was looking at the contracts. They paid Tyreek Hill $30 million, just like Amon-Ra gets $30 million. But they also paid Jalen Waddle 26, 27
It's
million.
not the same though, Boone.
So if somehow, some way he goes off for over 1,000 yards this year, he is going to ask for some money. Like he will ask for an extension. That's just how it is.
Oh no, yeah. I mean, you're talking about asking for money. Like he ain't.
Yeah,
look,
I mean, but like
Jalen Waddle has been 1,300 yard guy.
He has,
yeah,
but
like,
if you look at it to where it's
money.
like he can ask for it, and Brad's going to have a conversation. Maybe if Brad, like, hey, if you're asking for that money, Brad's like, hey, we need to see it another year because he is a first round pick, so he does have a fifth year option.
J-Mo, but that would be
so. This is his 4th season, correct? Going into his 4th year or 3rd year?
Third year.
Third year. Oh, you've got so much time. Like he can ask for next. I don't think he's eligible for a contract until after next year, anyways. If I'm wrong, if I'm correct.
No, you're right. That's why he asked him. I would make him wait another year, just see if he can build on that. That's all.
So when his contract does come up, though, he potentially could have 2 1,000-yard seasons back to back. Then he could sit there and ask for that type of money and say, "Hey, this is where I'm at."
I don't think you give it to him, though. I love JMO, but I don't think he's not going to retire his NFL career in Detroit. I don't see a way that he can. I think JMO knows he's a guy that can go get 1,000 yards. I don't think he's going to ever get 1,000 yards and get damn close. It was scrimmage yards, so definitely get over 1,000. But he's just, and it's Jamison Williams is so talented, so it's crazy to say it, but he's not a guy that the Detroit Lions need to keep in order to win. I think you can go out and get a 1st, 2nd round, 3rd round wide receiver, 4th round Amon-Ra St. Brown that can replace his production. Maybe not right away, but when you have running back like Jahmyr Gibbs, tight end like Sam Laporta, and Amon-Ra St. Brown who are still hanging around with that offensive line, I'm confident they can still win games without Jamison Williams because they've already done it.
And I hate talking about it because we all collectively think the world of JMO and what he can be. But I've said before, and I think me and you are lockstep with this, JMO will never hit that true what he believes his ceiling is and what many people do as well here in Detroit. I just don't think with the weapons they have. Like they found Sam Laporta last year. I mean, who would have thought they would have 1,000-yard tight end? Like that just happens, like
they take a running back in the 1st round.
Who's an absolute reception machine, it's gonna.
And by the way, third year is the after the 3rd. So after this year, he can get extended. I think on both sides. Brad says no, and I think JMO. If I'm JMO, if you're actually trying to get paid, you wait because you've been out for 2 years. Yeah, where you're at in your career.
And I really do hope we all hope they extend him. I'm just curious how the approach is. If JMO's thinking to himself, I could be a 1,300-yard guy somewhere else, or do I want to win, stay here, and just kind of be like an 800 to 900-yard guy every year?
Because some bowls, though.
But win some bowls. I'm curious, or maybe be a 1,000-yard guy. But then again, you're not going to have 3,000-yard receivers. Like it's just
you know what a prime example of the Amon-Ra JMO thing could end up looking like is over in Cincinnati, Jamar Chase and T Higgins, to where T Higgins is like, I can be a 1 somewhere, and he's on that contract where he's like, I need an extension now, and they're like, well, we're gonna wait. like, we still want you for another year. We're going to franchise tag you. Obviously, like, the timing and everything's a little more different, but T. Higgins is a guy that's like, I could go get 1,400 yards somewhere else if I wanted to. And they're like,
I'm interested to see. Brad's going to have to use that franchise tag eventually. He hasn't yet.
The Purple Prince, how about both starting tackles being out for the Rams week 1? Hutch Defensive Player of the Year campaign starting strong.
Very much so.
The narratives coming together.
Love when my narratives start working out, boys.
Yeah, Hutch, I mean, that's huge, by the way. We haven't really talked about it, but you've been seeing those. Dude, 2 tackles out potentially week 1. I know one's
and Jonah
out, right?
Jackson.
And, dude, they could have 3 starters on their offensive line out.
I
didn't see the other tackle. I saw the one got suspended. I didn't see the other one got hurt.
Barbecue chicken. Yeah. That's what it's looking like.
And again, the narrative and I'm going to say this. First person in the city to start the Defensive Player of the Year campaign for Aiden Hutchinson right here. And you guys remember the reason that I put behind it was the narratives. Like, that is the storylines. Week 1, Sunday Night Football. Who calls Sunday Night Football again?
Chris Collinsworth and Al Michael. Oh wait, no, it's not
PFF.
Who's PFF?
Collinsworth. It's Collinsworth. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's what he said. I was like, wait, Chris.
Collinsworth sitting there, and he's the biggest narrative guy. He's the one that loves to start.
Now here's a guy.
Yeah, here's a guy that could win Defensive Player of the Year this year. If you guys have been listening to this kid Booner over on the official Crunch Time podcast, like, no, that's what's going to Mike Tirico and Chris Collins. That's what's going to happen. And I'll tell you what, he's going to go out there and get 2.5 sacks, couple pass deflections, hand up on Matthew Stafford. Don't be shocked if you either see an interception on Matthew Stafford or a strip sack and picks it up. And that's what's going to happen on Sunday Night Football, national TV, and the Defensive Player of the Year, Aiden Hutchinson thing's going to get going and start rolling. And that's exactly what's going to happen. And then it's just going to carry on into Dallas in a couple weeks later, Seattle at one point, the 49ers to end the season and to cap off a Defensive Player of the Year thing, sacking Brock Purdy 2 or 3 times. The storyline, guys. Yeah, you guys know I'm a storyline guy. That's the storyline. And it's like the fact that it's happening the way it is, like, it's a beautiful thing.
Keaton says, do you think we keep more CB depth or safety depth? Which do we need more?
Cornerback depth. Yeah. It's not even close. And what's funny is we were talking about, like, imagine last year in the NFC Championship, Kendall Vildor was your cornerback 2, and now he's going to be fighting to make the team as your cornerback 6. So good position to be in, but you definitely keep the cornerback depth, especially with the amount of wide receivers that are in this division. Look at the Packers, they're 5 deep. Bears, Roma Dunze, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Vikings, Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson. They even got like TJ Hawkins, who's going to be making plays down the field in corner zone. So you got to keep corners.
I agree with that 100%. I mean, you nailed that. So
corner for sure. Corners too, flexible. You can do you can do different things with those
nickel
guys.
Too. Yeah,
you can move guys around.
Xavier D, do you think it makes sense to bring in an X as opposed to using receiver that Goff is already comfortable with? Where are you guys at? Because I'm gonna be honest, I lean on the side of bringing in someone Goff's. If priority A should be like Robert Woods, like I would put him over anybody else because of I think that's more important to Goff. I think, like, for the offense, I don't think you should, like, if there's Robert Woods available and Tim Patrick, I would go get Robert Woods. Because of I don't. That's where I'm at. Because Goff, we know his history with that, but that's my opinion.
I just think you have to diversify the offense a little bit. Like, you have so many guys that are doing the same thing that defensively, it's easier to game plan. I think when you have guys that all do the same thing compared to, okay, here's a guy that gives you a different look. And even if it's Tim Patrick, like, you still have to account for him, or Tim Patrick's going to give you 2 first downs if you think I'm accounted for. 2 first downs is big in a football game. So when you look at that, like Robert Woods, when's he really going to see the field? You know what I mean? You bring in an X wide receiver. I think even if it's a lower end one, he's going to give you more value to what he brings to this offense.
What do you think, Boone?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of, and I was a bit, I like Tim Patrick. I think Tim Patrick is could be a good addition. I am a little like the Robert Woods thing. Like, you've seen Jared Goff. What my mind goes to is, like, you saw Jared Goff with Josh Reynolds, like that connection, like they had that in LA, and then they bring it to Detroit, and like it's an instant connection. Like, you've seen that Jared Goff's a guy that needs to be familiar with the player. Like, that could be a reason as well the DPJ thing didn't work out, was they just can never, like, not used to it, couldn't figure it out. During the season last year, you saw that it took so long for them to even get connected once because they were trying to figure that thing out. I think it's the same thing here. If you bring a guy in You don't want to bring a Tim Patrick in and it end up, I see Sir Graves put in there about Marvin Jones. You don't want it to end up being a Marvin Jones situation to where Jerry just can't get comfortable. They can't get on the same page and it ends up just not working out. And then you have to fit, you're sitting there with only 3 or 4 guys that you trust in that room. So for me, it's just more so if Robert Woods is a choice and like you talk to Jared, hey, this is an option. And he's like, yes, do it. Like, I know who he is. I know what he's about. I think that's probably a little bit more beneficial for your football team at the end of the day. Like, you can trust that, especially like if it's not like a long-term plan. It's like, hey, we're going on a Super Bowl run this year. Like Juju with the Chiefs. Juju's not going to work on a lot of teams, but he won a Super Bowl and had 900 plus yards with Patrick Mahomes on the Chiefs. Like, you bring him in, like that connection's there instantly. So like, it's just something like that to me.
Papa D's mailbag, is Tom Kennedy making the team? No.
Imagine Tom Kennedy making over Donovan Peoples-Jones and Daurice Fountain.
That would be crazy.
That'd be insanity.
Over Caden Davis.
TK85, he hangs around now. He hangs around. You just can't you try to flick him away. He just keeps coming back. Every training camp, he's back. Practice squad, he's there.
He'll be on the practice squad, yeah.
He'll be there.
He ain't never leaving Detroit.
No, I guess not. I mean, he's been here he's a while, it seems like. The Shaquille Oatmeal, love that name, by the way. Davenport or Houston at the opposite side of Hutch.
Davenport. Healthy Davenport.
Yeah, I would say Davenport until.
Hey, if Davenport's healthy, the dude is a machine. Let's be honest. There is one problem with Marcus Davenport. This guy doesn't stay healthy.
Machine's excessive. Excessive.
Sometimes out of gas, but he's still a machine.
You guys give James Houston the credit for 1 sack per game.
I wouldn't call James Houston a machine. James Houston's not a machine.
I'm not calling him a machine.
You called Marcus Davenport a machine.
No, all right.
Wait.
Take a step back. I've made a pact to myself when Klotz tries to troll me and say weird things and put words in my mouth.
No, you did just say he was a machine, though.
I said Marcus Davenport. I said, hey, if he's healthy, he's a machine. He's had years in the NFL to where he's played in 10 games and has had 8 or 9 sacks, just like James Houston. So if he's healthy, guys on this roster have came out and said like even Aiden Hutchinson, DJ Reader, Aleem, they're like, this guy, Marcus Davenport, like he powers through guys. He is a machine. He literally just picks guys up and throws them. Like, when I say machine, I'm not saying, oh, he goes out and gets 20 sacks. I'm saying this dude is just like absolute monster and will throw guys out of the way and run through guys. Like, if he's healthy, he's running through you.
When you said machine, I thought of like sack machine.
I just mean like a legit machine, like he's running through you.
Okay,
that's on me then. Maybe you guys, take it a little easy on me a little bit here, going sometimes, huh? Maybe hear me out sometimes before you guys cut.
No, I heard. Hey, well, Cartier says Davenport. Why not? I mean, defense player of the year. I mean, I don't know. He don't sleep on him.
Can I say something real quick?
No, you
can't. Off topic.
Yeah, what's up?
Can we have 360 people watching? Can we get 200 plus likes? Like, not even asking for 360 likes. Let's get over 200. If you haven't hit the like button, just real quick, just for the boys, it pushes the boys out to the algorithm a little bit. The season's coming up. Yeah. I was on a phone call today for us to get to be in person together for these watch parties, guys, downtown. It is almost a lock. Like, this is going to be the biggest season of all time. Detroit Lions, crunch time. This is going to be the biggest season of all time. Hit the like button, push the boys out. You guys are all a part of this journey with us. Every single person watching, all 360 people.
Hey, like Ryan says, hit the like button, you machines. I mean, just do it.
Machine.
Chris says, what's going on with Iffy? I wish I had a definitive answer. I don't know. I don't know. I haven't seen a single thing about like his play. I don't know. Is he? I don't know. I don't know. Health, play. He's been running with twos a lot in training camp. It's been weird, but I'm not worried about it. Just let that thing play out. I think he'll be just fine for the season. I'm not too worried about it. I don't think you guys are either. Knowing we've had these.
I'm excited. You know what? Real quick with Iffy, I'm excited to see like Iffy's role on this team. That's all. I'm just like, If everyone's healthy, there's going to be injuries, so he's going to get some time. I'm just interested to see where he fits in with Kirby and Brian Branch healthy. Because, like, who are you taking off the field?
Not Brian Branch. I don't give a fuck. You don't take Brian Branch off.
And like Kirby's a ball hog too. So
defensive end.
Like I don't really want, and I know some people might not like Kirby sometimes. I love Kirby. Like Kirby's a ball hog. Like every time Kirby's on the field, there's a chance that the quarterback's throwing an interception. So like or getting a pass deflection. So like I'm interested. That's like the only thing with iffy. Like I'm very interested to see like where does this guy fit? Where does he fit?
Yeah. I agree with everything you just said there. Let's see. Rock Don Lions. Shout out Will, man. Big shout out to Will. He says, I'm the only one who thinks Mosley getting saved again is a huge mistake.
Not really, because if he's activated, like come playoff time, I think that's a nice CB6 to have. You know what I mean? Like I don't think there's like I understand it's back-to-back major injuries, but is it back-to-back major injuries? But I just think he's a guy that you bring in a Zach Ertz last year to help the tight end room. You got a lot of young corners here with Terrion, Ennis Rakestraw. If you look at Terrion, how Emmanuel Mosley play, very similar. So I think he brings some value to that room, even if it's not on the field. Every NFL team has that.
Yeah, and Mosley too is a veteran deal. When he was playing before he tore his pec, he was like fighting for the nickel spot. Like I'm pretty sure when he got hurt, he was actually taking the majority of the snaps over Amik Robertson at that spot. Like he was winning a starting spot before he got hurt. So like you just had essentially outside of that injury, you brought a guy on a vet minimum that was about to be a starting nickel on your team. And Emmanuel Mosley's a dog too. So like when he does come back, he's gonna fit in. I think they'll find a spot. I don't think it's a bad deal at all.
Yeah, that comment is just out of pocket.
That guy up north, torn JJ is wild.
Yeah. John, hey, shout out to John. He says Lions season prediction 14-3 or 16-1. It's hard to say. I think we sweep the early season and sweep the Bears, Vikings, and split Green Bay.
Talk to me, John.
Dallas cheats us again for one loss. I mean, imagine the one loss. You're 17 season and the only loss.
Especially with Dallas. If it was to I'd rather lose to the Tennessee Titans or Arizona Cardinals than the Dallas Cowboys this year because honestly, the rosters are going to be pretty damn equal.
Yeah, you know what, too? With those, you start getting the narratives like, can the Lions win big games? Like beat Dallas. Again, I would rather lose to a smaller team, a worse team, than like just win these big games.
Send Dak packing to New Orleans or Oakland. Or not Oakland, Vegas. One of the two.
I've been seeing stuff about Dak potentially being no longer a Cowboy. I don't know.
He can't. They can only sign him or Micah. They literally don't have the room. And if you're signing Dak Prescott, letting Micah Parsons walk, you are on crack. Jerry Jones has absolutely lost it if you let Micah Parsons walk.
I want to see something. There was a tweet while we were on air. I
got a buddy. Shout out Soli, huge Giants fan, and he already is putting in the group chat, make him a Giant. I'm like, oh,
that'd be nice. I see if Dak were to go somewhere else, I think I would genuinely like root for Dak. But I cannot root for a Dallas Cowboys quarterback. I just can't do it.
Yeah.
You guys remember when
you're in Dallas, he gets that MVP hype. And it's like Dak is not an MVP quarterback. He
can't handle the expectations in Dallas.
15-9 quarterback, somewhere wherever you want to rank him, whatever your fragrance is. I think 9's egregious, but some people can put him there. And you can make an argument statistically. I don't agree with it, but he's a good NFL quarterback. You put him in a good situation with not a lot of pressure, I think he performs.
I put him at 10 on our quarterbacks ranking, and it was just said, just get the man out of Dallas, put him somewhere to where it's just the narrative's gone. He doesn't have the exactly. That was my Seattle. That was my argument with Dak at 10. Was this guy puts the numbers up? If he just gets the pressure off of him of having to perform as an MVP, and he just goes out there and he just has different ownership. Like, get Jerry Jones off this man's front porch. Like, let Dak just go live, play football, and just let him actually get somewhere with the good culture. Like, bring him to Seattle. Put him. Maybe not New York, because New York isn't the best.
Yeah.
But like, just get him in get him somewhere with the good culture, a good thing. And like, Dak's like, realistically, I know he hasn't won the big games. I think part of him not winning the big games is just the Dallas Cowboys team as a whole. Mike McCarthy. Like, I just think it was just the situation he's been in. Like, I do think if he, like, say Matthew Stafford leaves in a year or two, and they go, hey, let's bring Dak in with the Rams with Sean McVay.
McVay's like, nah, we don't want that.
But what if McVay's like, what if McVay was like, I'll take him. and they take him. And like Sean McVay with Dak Prescott, they could win a lot of football games there. So like, I do think Dak is like a what's that the saying, like something of your man, I can't think of the
product of your environment.
Yes, product of your environment. Like that's all I think with Dak. Like if Dak wasn't in Dallas, imagine him in Las Vegas. Someone just put it in there. Who is that? Burning Issues. I think that's a good environment. I think that's good. Burning Issues said the Las Vegas, the Raiders.
Oh, yeah, bro. Him and Antonio Pierce. Yeah, got
would be
Devontae
perfect.
there.
Oh my gosh.
And somewhere with
like
a decently sized. I mean, not like a big market. You can't play in a big market city. I think. I mean, maybe Seattle would be a good fit. I think a perfect fit for him, or Vegas, something like that. But Vegas is a big market. But
I'm trying to see. I'm looking at some teams.
Seattle's perfect. We'll get out of here. Appreciate you guys so much, man. Don't forget, like Booner said, like the video.
Yeah, 300 people, 300 likes. Hit the like button. Come on, baby. Lions. Hey,
there you go.
When we're on tomorrow, we have a roster. We have a roster tomorrow. Klotzy might pass out. We have a roster tomorrow. We have a roster tomorrow. If you don't hit the like button if you want to see the roster.
Boone, you were talking for too long, bro.
Hey, I'm just pumped.
Lucas is going to be me if Sudfeld's here tomorrow. I mean, that's what I'm going to look like.
If I see Jake Fromm wave Nate Sudfeld kept, might not be here tomorrow. Might take the show off.
All right, tune in tomorrow. We'll break down the final roster. Until then, take care, guys. Get your merchandise, officialctsports.com. Subscribe, like,
Lucas
the stream.
Does not
Continue
look
to
good.
show support.
Dude, my eyes hurt.
Until tomorrow, we'll catch you. Stay safe out there. Stay blessed.
Peace.